1. King Arthur, legendary British leader. Have you ever heard the whispers of Avalon drifting through the mist? Do you wonder if there was once a sword, sealed in stone, waiting for the hand of a king? Have you ever closed your eyes and seen the flicker of torchlight on ancient castle walls, heard the clang of steel in noble cause, or felt the burden of a crown born not of birthright, but of destiny? Then lean closer and listen well. For tonight, we journey deep into the myth and memory of a man who may never have lived, yet whose name echoes through the ages like the call of a lost king. Arthur, King Arthur. He is born not in comfort, but in secret. The story begins with Uther Pendragon, a king driven by desire and war. He falls for the beautiful Igraine, wife of Duke Gorloy of Cornwall. With the help of the enchanter, Merlin, Uther takes the form of Gorloy and lies with Igraine, conceiving a child on the very night her true husband dies in battle. That child is Arthur, but the child is not raised as a prince. Merlin, ever the weaver of destinies, takes the infant and places him in the care of Sir Ector, a loyal noble who raises Arthur alongside his own son, Kay. The boy grows up unaware of his bloodline. He plays in the fields, polishes armor, and learns the code of knights. He is humble, kind, and unnoticed by the world, until fate reveals itself. The kingdom is in chaos. Uther is dead, and there is no clear heir. Merlin, with secrets tight behind his eyes, arranges a test. A sword buried in an anvil, sealed in stone. Upon it is etched the challenge: whoso pulleth out this sword from this stone and anvil is rightwise king born of all England. Knights try, lords strain, days pass and the sword remains untouched, until one day young Arthur, still a squire, stumbles upon it while searching for a sword for Kay. Without pride or ambition, he grasps the hilt. The stone yields, the sword sings. He is king. The early days of Arthur's reign are filled with promise. Guided by Merlin and driven by a heart pure with justice, he unites the warring tribes and petty kingdoms under one banner. He establishes his court at Camelot, a shining beacon of chivalry and hope. Around him gathers a circle of noble knights, sworn not to serve power, but to uphold honor, the Knights of the Round Table. Each knight is equal, each quest sacred. Together they form a brotherhood: Lancelot, Gawain, Percival, Galahad, and others, champions of the weak, seekers of the Holy Grail, and guardians of peace. And beside Arthur, his queen, Guinevere. Her beauty is matched only by her grace, and though love binds them, destiny will strain that bond. But even the brightest rain bears the shadow of fate. The turning point comes quietly. Lancelot and Guinevere, bound by proximity and unspoken longing, begin a love that defies law and loyalty. It begins in silence, in glances, in dreams, in aching restraint. But love, once lit, cannot be hidden. Arthur, ever the just king, senses the shift but says nothing. Perhaps he hopes it will pass. Perhaps he loves them both too dearly to act. Or perhaps he already hears the hoofbeats of ruin. The affair is eventually discovered, and the realm trembles. Lancelot flees. Guinevere is sentenced to death, only to be rescued by the very man she betrayed Arthur with. Brother turns against brother. Knights choose sides. The round table cracks. And into the fracture steps Mordred, born of treachery. Arthur's own son by his half-sister Morgause or Morgan Le Fay. Mordred is a figure of bitterness, vengeance, and cunning. He stirs rebellion, exploits division, and declares himself rightful heir. The final battle looms. On the fields of Camlan, blood stains the grass. Arthur faces Mordred in a clash that ends kingdoms. Mordred falls by Arthur's sword, but not before striking a fatal blow. Wounded, weary, and fading, Arthur commands his loyal knight Bedivere to return the enchanted sword Excalibur to the Lady of the Lake. Twice Bedivere hides it, unwilling to part with the symbol of an age. But Arthur insists. At last the sword is cast into the water, and a hand, pale, feminine, unearthly, rises from the depths to claim it. Arthur is taken, not buried. Some say he died. Others say he was carried to Avalon, to sleep until Britain needs him again, the once and future king. What does it mean? Arthur's tale is not merely one of swords and crowns. It is the story of ideals, of honor, love, loyalty, and the cost of betrayal. He may not have lived as history demands, but he lives as myth requires. He is the dream of just rule, of noble quests, of flawed humanity seeking the divine. So now, as the mist settles over the land and the fires of Camelot flicker low, close your eyes. Let the echo of hooves on stone fade. Let the sword sleep beneath the lake. Let Arthur rest. As you close your eyes tonight, let the lessons of King Arthur carry you gently into a world of dreams. Sleep well, dear traveler of history. Sweet dreams. 2. Charlemagne, Holy Roman Emperor, united much of Europe. Do you ever wonder what it would take to unite a continent splintered by tribal rivalries, warfare, and chaos? Could one man, born in the shadows of a fallen empire, become the light that would forge a new one? Tonight, let us drift through the mists of early medieval Europe into a time of sword and scripture, of emperors and monks, and follow the footsteps of Charlemagne Charles the Great, whose dreams and conquests shaped a world still echoing in today's Europe. Born in the year 742, Charles came into a world not quite Roman, not quite Frankish. His father, Pepin the Short, ruled the Franks, while his grandfather, Charles Martel, had famously turned back an Islamic army at the Battle of Tours. But Charles was not born in marble palaces. His early years were forged in the rugged halls of Frankish courts, where warrior kings drank mead and debated territory with sword in hand. Raised alongside his brother Carloman, Charlemagne absorbed Latin prayers, war chants, and the crackling voice of old Roman tradition, all murmuring through the monasteries his family favored. When Pepin died in 768, the kingdom was split between Charles and Carloman. Tensions boiled under this dual rule. The brothers did not see eye to eye, and their kingdoms teetered on the brink of civil war. But fate intervened. In 771, Carloman died unexpectedly, and Charles assumed full control. He was just 29, tall and commanding, already bearing the intense, almost divine fire that would earn him the name Magnus. His early reign saw battles against the Lombards of Italy, the Saxons of Germania, and the Moors of Spain. His campaigns were brutal but calculated, aimed not only at conquest but at Christianization. The Saxon Wars, spanning 3 decades, would become a hallmark of his reign, a mix of evangelism and vengeance. His treatment of rebels was severe. In one chilling moment, he ordered the execution of 4,500 Saxons in Verdun. To modern ears, such acts ring as cruelty, but in his time, Charlemagne was seen as God's hammer. And yet there was vision behind the violence. Charlemagne brought with him not only priests but scribes, builders, and teachers. He understood that to unite Europe was not just to conquer its peoples, but to give them a shared soul. In Aachen, he built his royal court, crowned by a resplendent cathedral inspired by Roman and Byzantine splendor. He gathered scholars like Alcuin of York and founded the Carolingian Renaissance, a flowering of learning that preserved classical knowledge through the Dark Ages. In the year 800, on Christmas Day, Charlemagne entered the great Basilica of St. Peter in Rome. As he knelt in prayer, Pope Leo III placed a crown upon his head and proclaimed him Emperor of the Romans. The ghost of the ancient empire stirred. For the first time in centuries, Western Europe had an emperor. Yet Charlemagne claimed surprise, as if he hadn't known of the Pope's plans. Perhaps he feared being seen as Leo's creation, or perhaps he was playing the long game, weaving his rule with divine threads. The title of emperor brought both glory and burden. Charlemagne ruled over a realm stretching from the Pyrenees to the Danube, from the North Sea to central Italy. He appointed loyal nobles to govern lands, but power was decentralized, and unity often hung by the thread of his personal authority. To maintain it, he rode constantly, inspecting courts, administering justice, and ensuring loyalty. His laws, compiled in capitularies, touched on everything from tithes and taxes to moral behavior, even haircut length for monks. Yet for all his power, Charlemagne was a deeply human figure. He loved swimming in hot springs. He disliked the formal robes of Byzantium, preferring simple Frankish dress. He had numerous children and insisted they be educated, boys and girls alike. His palace buzzed with life, laughter, and learning. His relationships with his children were tender, particularly with his daughters, whom he famously refused to marry off, preferring their company at court. But no empire lasts forever. The cracks began before his death. Despite his wish for unity, he divided his empire among his heirs, a move that led to fragmentation after his passing. Charlemagne died in 814, at age 72, in Aachen. He was buried beneath the cathedral he had built, entombed in regal stillness. His legacy, however, lived on. Though the empire fractured, his vision endured. The idea of a united Christendom, of a central authority balancing sword and scripture, inspired kings and emperors for centuries. Napoleon would later reimagine himself as a new Charlemagne. The European Union today even references him in its symbolic lineage. And so, dear dreamer, as you close your eyes and breathe softly beneath the starlit hush of night, let the echoes of Charlemagne's world stir gently in your thoughts. A realm of candles and cloisters, of armored knights and cathedral bells, of ambition forged not only in blood, but in ink and stone. Let history cradle you tonight. Sleep well, dear traveler of history. Sweet dreams. The Richard the Lionheart, English king and crusader. Do you know what it takes to become a legend? Not merely a name in dusty chronicles, but a force etched in stone, sung by bards, and whispered in candlelit halls. Richard Plantagenet, better known as Richard the Lionheart, was such a figure. He was a king, yes, but also a warrior, a symbol of chivalry and a soul torn between duty and desire, loyalty and ambition. Tonight, we follow his tale, not through rigid dates, but through the rhythm of legacy, the rise and fall of a lion. He was born on the 8th of September, 1157 in Oxford, England, to the formidable Eleanor of Aquitaine and King Henry II of England. The third son in a royal house brimming with power and contention, Richard was not expected to rule, but the Plantagenets were no ordinary dynasty. From his earliest days, Richard was marked by his mother's fire. Eleanor, the once Queen of France, a woman of intellect and independence, ensured her children would not live in shadow. Richard was raised in the Duchy of Aquitaine, the jewel of his mother's inheritance. It was here, among the rolling hills of southwestern France, that he was steeped in courtly life, in poetry and warfare, and in the intricate dance of politics. He learned to wield a sword as deftly as he recited verse. By his teenage years, he had grown into a striking figure, tall with golden hair and a commanding presence. But it was not peace he sought. The seeds of rebellion took root. Richard rose not first as a prince of England, but as a rebel against his own father. Alongside his brothers, he turned against King Henry II in a series of civil wars. Bloodlines blurred as swords clashed. Love and betrayal became indistinguishable. Eleanor, imprisoned by her husband for her role in the rebellion, watched as her sons vied for control. Through conflict and cunning, Richard emerged dominant. After the deaths of his elder brothers, he became heir to the throne. In 1189, Richard became King of England, Duke of Normandy, Count of Anjou, and ruler of vast territories stretching from the Scottish borders to the Pyrenees. Yet England was only a part of his realm, and perhaps the part he loved least. Within months of his coronation, Richard set his eyes eastward to Jerusalem. The Holy Land called, and the Third Crusade began. Richard was no ordinary crusader. He led with valor, outshone other monarchs, and carved a path across the Mediterranean like a blazing star. In Sicily, he asserted his dominance. In Cyprus, he conquered and married, taking Berengaria of Navarre as his queen, though love was never the foundation of their union. And finally, he reached Acre, where the siege turned into a brutal reckoning. His rivalry with Philip II of France, a fellow crusader king, simmered and boiled. Distrust fractured their alliance. But Richard pressed on. His greatest adversary was Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt in Syria. Their battles became legendary. At Arsuf, Richard led a daring cavalry charge that decimated enemy lines. His courage became the stuff of legend, yet he never reclaimed Jerusalem. Though Richard came within sight of the holy city, he turned back, knowing he could not hold it. Instead, he brokered a truce with Saladin, a moment of mutual respect between two giants of their age. Pilgrims would be allowed to visit Jerusalem. It was not the victory he had envisioned, but it preserved life and honor. As he journeyed home in 1192, fate twisted the knife. Shipwrecked and disguised, Richard attempted to pass through hostile lands. He was captured near Vienna by Leopold of Austria, a man he had offended during the crusade. The Lionheart became a prisoner, and a king held for ransom. England, weary and overtaxed, bled silver to secure his release. When Richard returned to his lands, he found betrayal had festered. His brother John had schemed with Philip of France. The crown was not safe, the peace uncertain. Yet Richard forgave, rebuilt, and prepared for war anew. His final years were spent defending his territories in France, always on horseback, always in armor. In 1199, while besieging the small castle of Chalus-Chabrol, Richard was struck by a crossbow bolt. The wound festered. He lingered, and then he died. Not in glorious battle, but from infection, in the arms of his mother. Eleanor buried her lion at Fontevraud Abbey, beside his father. What remains of Richard? Not laws or reforms. He left no grand legacy of governance. He spoke little English. He taxed heavily to fund war, and yet he remains beloved. Because Richard the Lionheart embodies something deeper, the ideal of knightly valor, the mythic warrior king who roamed far and fought boldly. In song and tale, he lived as few ever could. Some say he was reckless, that he ruled more with sword than sense. Others call him the last true crusader. Perhaps he was both. He lived fast, died young, and became immortal, not in power but in memory. As the night deepens and shadows grow long, let the echo of hooves and banners, the glint of a lion's shield, lull you into dreams of distant lands and starlit marches. For Richard rides still, in stories, in song, and in the hearts of those who dream of gallant kings. As you close your eyes tonight, let the lessons of Richard the Lionheart carry you gently into a world of dreams. Sleep well, dear traveler of history. Sweet dreams. 4. William the Conqueror, first Norman, King of England. Did you know that the fate of England was once decided by a man born not as a king, but as a boy called the Bastard? What if a single battle could change the course of an entire nation's language, culture, and rule forever? William of Normandy, born around 1028, came into the world under the long shadow of illegitimacy. His father, Robert I, Duke of Normandy, had no wife, only a mistress, her Leva, the daughter of a tanner. That alone made William's path to power nearly impossible. As a child, he witnessed the fierce struggle for dominance in a feudal world, where betrayal often came cloaked in smiles. Normandy was violent, unruly and unstable. Its young duke would have to become harder than stone to survive. He was only 8 when his father died on pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and William inherited the title of duke. A child with a claim but no power, his early years were surrounded by bloodshed. Protectors were murdered, castles stormed, loyalties bought and sold. But William endured. He studied his enemies, built alliances with the church and powerful nobles, and slowly hardened into a commander capable of crushing rebellions and inspiring loyalty in a land constantly at war. As he grew older, William's ambitions grew too. Across the sea in England, Edward the Confessor, childless and aging, was a distant cousin. William claimed that Edward had promised him the English crown. Whether it was true or not, it gave William a cause. In 1064, Harold Godwinson, the most powerful noble in England, was shipwrecked in Normandy. William claimed Harold swore an oath to support his claim. But when Edward died in 1066, Harold seized the throne. Betrayal, a broken oath, ambition stirred like thunderclouds. William prepared for invasion. He secured the Pope's blessing, turning his war into a holy crusade. He gathered a mighty fleet and army, using promises of land and power to recruit soldiers from across France. The sea crossing was treacherous, but fortune favored him. William landed at Pevensey in September 1066. His men built fortifications quickly. News came that Harold had just defeated another invader, the Norwegian king Harald Hardrada, and now raced south. Then came the fateful day, October 14th, 1066, the Battle of Hastings. The English formed a shield wall on a hill. William's knights, archers, and infantry attacked repeatedly, only to be beaten back. But William's discipline and cunning showed. He faked retreats, luring the English into breaking formation. Bit by bit, Harold's army thinned. Finally, an arrow, some say guided by fate, struck Harold in the eye. The king fell, the Saxon line broke. Victory, but the crown was not yet his. William marched on London, devastating the countryside to force submission. On Christmas Day, 1066, he was crowned King of England at Westminster Abbey. The Norman conquest had begun. The early years of his reign were marked by revolts, and William responded with ruthless force. The North rebelled in 1069. He burned it to the ground. The herring of the North left a trail of death and starvation. William built castles across the land, symbols of his dominance, fortresses to crush rebellion. He reshaped England's nobility, replacing Anglo-Saxon lords with Norman barons. He imposed the feudal system, linking land directly to loyalty. Language, architecture, and law all bore the mark of Normandy. England was transformed. But power came at a cost. William never ruled in peace. Rebellions flared at home, challenges rose in France, and even his sons turned against him. His marriage to Matilda of Flanders was one of mutual respect and strength, yet family divisions would haunt his final years. In 1085, William ordered the creation of the Domesday Book, a detailed survey of his kingdom's wealth and resources. It showed a land subdued and measured, one last gesture of control. In 1087, during a campaign in France, William was injured when his horse threw him against a saddle pommel. He lingered in agony. On his deathbed, he confessed his sins, sought peace with God, and gave Normandy to his eldest son Robert, while England went to his second son, William Rufus. His funeral was chaos. As his body was lowered into the tomb, the stone proved too small. The corpse burst. The stench filled the cathedral. And so the conqueror died, not in battle, but broken, bloated, and mocked by fate. But his mark was everlasting. William's conquest ended Anglo-Saxon rule and bound England to Europe. His influence changed the very fabric of the nation, from the legal system to language. Centuries later, you can still see him in stone walls, in words of Norman French, in echoes of rule and order. A man born under scandal, crowned in ambition, and sealed in legacy. Now, dear traveler of history, let your mind drift. The sea that once bore William to a new destiny now lies calm. The clashing swords are silent. The castles he raised now sleep beneath moonlight. Sleep well, dear dreamer. As you close your eyes tonight, let the lessons of William the Conqueror carry you gently into a world of dreams. Sleep well, dear traveler of history. Sweet dreams. 5. Joan of Arc, French heroine and saint. Do you know the story of a young girl who heard the voices of saints and changed the fate of a nation? Imagine a world torn by war, a girl with faith burning like a flame, rising from humble beginnings to lead armies and inspire kings. This is the tale of Joan of Arc, a figure of courage and mystery, a beacon of hope in dark times. Joan was born around the year 1412 in a small village called Domremy in northeastern France. She came from a simple family of peasants who worked the land with care and honesty. Joan's childhood was quiet, but full of the rhythms of country life, the turning of the seasons, the singing of birds, and the warmth of a close-knit family. Though she was just a child, she was known for her strong spirit, quick mind, and deep kindness. As Joan grew, so did the shadows cast over her homeland. France was trapped in the Hundred Years' War, a brutal conflict with England. The French crown was fragile, the people weary, and the land scarred by battles. Many believed the kingdom was doomed, its hope fading like the last light of day. Yet Joan, even as a girl, was not afraid to dream of a brighter future. At the age of 13, Joan began to experience visions. She heard voices she believed came from Saints Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret. These voices told her that she had a sacred mission to save France and help the rightful king reclaim his throne. To many, these visions were strange, even frightening. But Joan felt a calm certainty. Her faith was her guide, shining brightly through the darkness. Joan's path was not easy. How could a simple peasant girl convince nobles and soldiers to listen? How could she, a young woman, stand before kings and commanders? But with quiet determination, Joan set out on her journey. She traveled to meet Charles VII, the Dauphin, the heir to the French throne, a man surrounded by doubt and distrust. Joan's presence was unlike anything he had seen before. She spoke with passion and confidence, and her courage stirred something deep within the court. With a small band of soldiers, Joan set forth to lift the siege of Orléans, a city trapped by English forces. It was a desperate moment, the people trapped and starving, the future uncertain. Yet Joan rode at the head of the army, her banner held high, her voice calling for faith and victory. Against all odds, the French forces broke the siege. The city was saved. Hope returned to France. Joan's early success brought her fame and respect. She was given armor and a horse, and she rode into battle as a warrior inspired by divine purpose. Her bravery on the battlefield was legendary, and her presence seemed to turn the tide of war. The Dauphin was crowned King Charles VII in Reims, the sacred city where kings were anointed, fulfilling one of Joan's greatest missions. But Joan's story was not only about triumph. The turning point came when she was captured by the Burgundians, allies of the English. Betrayed and sold to her enemies, Joan was imprisoned and put on trial for charges that were as political as they were religious. Her captors feared her power, her vision, and her influence. The trial was harsh and unjust, designed to break her spirit. Joan faced her accusers with unwavering faith and courage. She refused to deny her visions or abandon her mission. Despite torture and threats, she remained true to herself. Yet in 1431, at the age of just 19, Joan was condemned as a heretic and witch. She was sentenced to death and burned at the stake in the marketplace of Rouen. Her death was tragic, but it did not end her story. Joan's legacy grew stronger with time. In 1456, a posthumous retrial declared her innocent and a martyr. She became a symbol of bravery, faith, and the fight for justice. In 1920, she was canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church, her spirit immortalized in history. Joan of Arc's life teaches us about the power of belief, the strength to stand against impossible odds, and the impact one person can have on the world. Her story reminds us to listen to the quiet voices within and to follow the light even when the path is dark. Now, as your eyes grow heavy and your breath slows, imagine Joan's banner waving gently in the breeze, a symbol of hope carried on the wings of history. Let her courage inspire your dreams, and may you find peace in the knowledge that even the smallest voice can echo through time. Sleep well, dear dreamer, and carry the flame of Joan's spirit softly into your dreams. As you close your eyes tonight, let the story of Joan of Arc carry you gently into a world of courage and hope. Sleep well, dear traveler of history. Sweet dreams. 6. Eleanor of Aquitaine, powerful Queen of France and England. Did you ever wonder how a woman born over 900 years ago could shape the destinies of two great kingdoms, influence kings and crusades, and leave a legacy as a queen unlike any other? Imagine a world where power was often reserved for men, yet a woman could command armies, charm monarchs, and redefine what it meant to rule. This is the story of Eleanor of Aquitaine, a queen of remarkable strength, passion, and intelligence, whose life was as dramatic and sweeping as the medieval castles she once ruled. Eleanor came into the world around the year 1122 in the vast and wealthy region of Aquitaine, in what is now southwestern France. Born into one of the richest and most powerful noble families of the time, she was the eldest daughter of Duke William of Aquitaine and Honor de Châtellerault. From her earliest days, Eleanor was surrounded by the luxuries and responsibilities that came with her noble birth, sprawling castles, elegant courts filled with music and poetry, and the ever-present weight of politics. Her childhood was shaped by the culture of Aquitaine, a land known for its beauty, its vineyards, and its tradition of courtly love, a refined code of chivalry celebrated by troubadours and poets. Eleanor was taught the arts, languages, and the skills needed to manage vast estates. She was known for her sharp mind and her curiosity about the world beyond her home. Yet, despite her noble upbringing, her life was to be anything but easy or predictable. When Eleanor was just about 15 years old, her father died, leaving her the vast inheritance of the Duchy of Aquitaine, one of the largest and wealthiest territories in France. This made her one of the most sought-after heiresses in Europe. It was an age when marriages were political tools, alliances forged with castles and armies in mind. The young Eleanor's hand was a prize that could sway the balance of power. Her first marriage came in 1137 when she wed King Louis VII of France, a union that made her Queen of France. The marriage was as much a political alliance as a personal bond, and Eleanor moved to the French court with hopes of influence and power. But the early years of her queenship revealed the challenges she faced: a husband more interested in religion and warfare than in governing, a court filled with intrigue and tensions between her Aquitanian heritage and the French crown. Despite these difficulties, Eleanor remained a force to be reckoned with. She accompanied Louis on the Second Crusade, a grand military expedition to the Holy Land meant to reclaim Jerusalem from Muslim control. This was a perilous journey, crossing deserts and mountains, facing battles and hardship. It was rare for a queen to travel with such an army, and Eleanor's presence was a statement of her strength and resolve. However, the crusade itself was a failure, marked by defeats and setbacks. The experience strained the relationship between Eleanor and Louis. They returned to France with their marriage weakened and their political alliance fracturing. Eventually, after nearly 15 years, their marriage was annulled on grounds of consanguinity, being too closely related by blood. It was a dramatic and scandalous split, but Eleanor's spirit was undimmed. Almost immediately after the annulment, Eleanor married Henry Plantagenet, Duke of Normandy and Count of Anjou, who would soon become King Henry II of England. This marriage changed the course of history. Together they controlled an empire stretching from the Scottish borders down through England and vast swaths of France, a realm sometimes called the Angevin Empire. Eleanor was now Queen of England and mother to a future line of kings, including Richard the Lionheart and King John. Eleanor's influence was profound. She managed lands, courts, and politics with skill and intelligence. But her life was also marked by turmoil and tragedy. Henry was a demanding and often cruel husband. Their marriage, while powerful politically, was strained by conflicts and betrayals. Eleanor was known to have supported her sons in a rebellion against their father, a dangerous move that led to her imprisonment for over a decade. During those years of confinement, Eleanor's spirit never broke. She continued to wield influence behind the scenes and prepared to reclaim her power once released. Her later years were marked by a remarkable resurgence, where she acted as regent for her son Richard when he was away on the Third Crusade, overseeing the kingdom with wisdom and authority. Beyond politics and war, Eleanor's legacy lies also in culture and art. She was a great patron of the arts, encouraging the development of courtly love poetry and music. Her court in Aquitaine became a center of culture and refinement, inspiring generations. She also played a crucial role in arranging strategic marriages for her children, strengthening alliances across Europe. Eleanor's life was long and full, stretching into her 80s, an extraordinary age for the Middle Ages. She died in 1204, leaving behind a world forever shaped by her presence. Historians remember her not only as a queen but as a woman ahead of her time, fiercely independent, politically savvy, and endlessly courageous. Her story reminds us that power is not always about the sword or the throne sometimes. It is about the strength of character, the ability to endure, and the courage to follow one's own path. Eleanor of Aquitaine's life is a tale of passion, power, and perseverance, a legend to carry softly into your dreams. Now, as your eyes grow heavy and your breathing slows, imagine the tapestries of her castle shimmering in the candlelight, the echoes of troubadours' songs floating on the night air, and the quiet strength of a queen who dared to rule her destiny. Let Eleanor's courage and grace lull you gently toward peaceful sleep. Sleep well, dear dreamer, and may the legacy of Eleanor of Aquitaine guide you softly through the night. As you close your eyes tonight, may the strength and wisdom of Eleanor carry you into a world of noble dreams and peaceful rest. Sleep well, dear traveler of history. Sweet dreams. 7. Saladin, Muslim leader during the Crusades. Did you ever wonder what kind of man could unite vast lands torn by war, inspire loyalty across diverse peoples, and be remembered for his nobility even by his enemies? Imagine a leader who fought fiercely for his faith and people yet was known for mercy and honor in a brutal time. This is the story of Saladin, the Muslim leader whose name still echoes through history as a symbol of chivalry and courage during the Crusades. Born in the year 1137 or 1138 in the city of Tikrit, nestled along the banks of the Tigris River in what is now modern-day Iraq, Saladin's full name was Salah ad-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub. His early years unfolded against the backdrop of a fractured Middle East, a region divided into many small kingdoms and principalities, often at war with each other, and soon to be shaken by the arrival of the Crusaders from Europe. The world he inherited was one where power was as fragile as the shifting sands of the desert. Saladin belonged to a Kurdish family of military officers, and from an early age he was steeped in the traditions of warfare, leadership, and Islamic learning. His father and uncles served under powerful commanders, and Saladin himself was trained to be a soldier and a statesman. Yet even in those formative years, Something set him apart: a sharp mind, a deep sense of justice, and a determination to rise beyond the usual ambitions of a warrior. His rise to prominence began under the rule of Nur ad-Din, the powerful Syrian ruler who sought to unite the Muslim lands and push back against the Crusaders, who held key cities such as Jerusalem, Antioch, and Tripoli. Saladin entered Nur ad-Din's service as a young officer, gaining experience in battle and administration. His loyalty and ability soon earned him command over armies and governorships, especially in Egypt, which was a vital and wealthy region at the crossroads of Africa and Asia. By 1171, Saladin had consolidated control over Egypt, effectively ending the rule of the Fatimid Caliphate, a Shia dynasty that had long governed the region. With Egypt under his command, Saladin began the slow and steady process of uniting the Muslim world under his leadership, pledging allegiance to the Sunni Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad, thus restoring religious unity and political strength. This was no easy feat. The Middle East was a patchwork of rival rulers and factions, each wary of the other's ambitions. Saladin's early reign as the Sultan of Egypt was marked by efforts to strengthen his position politically and militarily. He rebuilt armies, secured borders, and sought alliances. His reputation grew not only as a fierce warrior, but also as a just and merciful ruler who cared deeply for his people. Unlike many leaders of his time, Saladin was known for his personal humility and generosity, qualities that earned him widespread respect. The defining turning point of Saladin's career came with the fate of Jerusalem, the ancient city sacred to Christians, Muslims, and Jews alike. Since the First Crusade in 1099, Jerusalem had been held by Crusader knights, who fortified it as a Christian kingdom in the heart of the Muslim world. For decades, the city was a flashpoint of conflict, religious fervor, and brutal clashes. In 1187, Saladin assembled one of the largest and most disciplined armies the Muslim world had seen in generations. His forces marched across the Levant with a determination that sent shockwaves through the Crusader states. The decisive battle occurred at Hattin, near the Sea of Galilee, where Saladin's forces crushed the Crusader armies. This victory was not only military, but symbolic. It opened the way for Saladin to reclaim Jerusalem. When Saladin entered Jerusalem later that year, the city was a testament to centuries of religious significance and human strife. Yet his capture of Jerusalem was unlike many other conquests of the time. Instead of a bloody massacre, Saladin showed mercy to the Christian inhabitants. He allowed them safe passage to leave the city and protected the holy sites of all faiths. This act of chivalry amazed many, even among his adversaries in Europe, and it earned him a reputation as a noble and honorable leader. For the next several years, Saladin's reign was a mix of defending his territories, fending off renewed Crusader attempts to regain lost ground, and managing the complex politics of the Muslim world. Despite constant warfare, Saladin maintained a vision of unity and peace under Islam, though he was pragmatic enough to negotiate and form alliances when necessary. Yet, even a great leader is not without personal trials. Saladin faced internal challenges from rival Muslim leaders who resented his growing power, as well as the difficulty of governing a vast empire spanning Egypt, Syria, Yemen, and parts of Iraq. Throughout, he remained a symbol of steadfast leadership and personal integrity. Saladin's legacy was cemented not just by his military victories, but by his approach to leadership, marked by justice, religious tolerance, and generosity. European chroniclers, often enemies in battle, admired his conduct. Stories of his kindness toward prisoners, respect for scholars, and patronage of the arts painted a picture of a ruler far beyond the stereotype of a ruthless conqueror. In his later years, Saladin's health began to decline. He continued to rule with wisdom, preparing his sons and trusted generals to carry on his work. He died in 1193 in Damascus, leaving behind an empire and a legend that would endure for centuries. Saladin's life reminds us that true power lies not just in conquest, but in compassion and honor. His story offers a vision of leadership that transcends time, a reminder that even in the darkest of ages, humanity's noblest qualities can shine bright. Now, as you lay your head down and drift into sleep, imagine the desert winds whispering tales of Saladin's courage, the soft glow of lanterns in ancient palaces, and the quiet strength of a leader whose spirit continues to inspire. Let his story be a gentle guide into your dreams. Sleep well, dear dreamer, and may the courage and kindness of Saladin carry you softly through the night. As you close your eyes tonight, may the legacy of Saladin inspire you to face your own challenges with honor and heart. Sleep well, dear traveler of history. Sweet dreams. 8. El Cid, Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, Spanish knight and war hero. Have you ever wondered how a lone knight could become the symbol of honor, loyalty, and fierce independence in a land torn apart by war and shifting alliances? What kind of man could navigate the dangerous politics of medieval Spain, fighting not only for his own survival, but also becoming a legend who inspired generations? This is the story of El Cid, Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, a warrior whose name echoes in history as a hero of Spain and a master of both sword and strategy. Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar was born around the year 1043 in the small village of Vivar near the city of Burgos, deep in the kingdom of Castile. From his earliest days, Rodrigo was surrounded by the rugged beauty and turbulent politics of the Iberian Peninsula, a land divided among Christian kingdoms in the north and Muslim caliphates in the south, locked in an endless contest for dominance. The son of a minor nobleman, Rodrigo's childhood was shaped by the ideals of knighthood, loyalty, and honor. He was trained in the arts of war, horsemanship, and the codes of chivalry that governed the knights of his time. As a young man, Rodrigo's bravery and skill quickly gained him a reputation at the royal court of Castile. His rise was swift. He became a favorite of King Sancho II, earning the nickname El Cid, derived from the Arabic word Sayyid, meaning lord or master, a title of great respect even among his Muslim foes. Rodrigo was more than a soldier. He was a man of complex character, known for his fierce loyalty to his king and his people, but also for his sharp mind and tactical genius. Rodrigo's ascent to power was not without struggle. The death of King Sancho II set off a deadly chain of events in the kingdom of Castile and its neighbors. His brother Alfonso VI, who was exiled after Sancho's death, returned with ambition and backed by powerful allies to claim the throne. Rodrigo found himself caught between loyalty and survival, navigating treacherous political waters. At times he served Alfonso VI, fighting alongside Christian forces against the Muslim taifas, small independent kingdoms, but tensions simmered beneath the surface. Despite his loyalty, Rodrigo was eventually exiled by Alfonso VI, accused of treason. But exile did not mean defeat. Rodrigo became a mercenary leader, a knight without a kingdom, but with an army and unmatched skill. His reputation as a fierce warrior and a cunning strategist grew throughout the peninsula. He fought battles not just for Christian kings, but also allied with Muslim rulers when it suited his cause, a reflection of the complex, often shifting loyalties of medieval Spain. One of Rodrigo's most famous military achievements was the capture of the city of Valencia, a jewel on the eastern coast of Spain. In 1094, after years of siege and warfare, El Cid took control of Valencia and ruled it as a semi-independent lord until his death. His reign there was marked by pragmatic leadership. He protected both Christian and Muslim inhabitants and sought to maintain peace in a region ravaged by centuries of conflict. The early years of his rule over Valencia were a time of hope and prosperity. Rodrigo established himself as a just and strong leader, earning the respect of his subjects regardless of their faith. His court became a center of culture and military power, and his legend grew not only as a warrior, but as a wise ruler. The story of El Cid is not just one of the endless battle, but of governance and the difficult balance of power. However, Rodrigo's life was marked by many turning points. His complex relations with King Alfonso VI and other rulers, coupled with the constant threat of enemies, both Christian and Muslim, forced him into a perpetual state of vigilance and warfare. His later years saw intense battles, sieges, and betrayals that tested the limits of his strength and resolve. El Cid's reputation for justice and loyalty was sometimes shadowed by ruthless decisions on the battlefield. War demanded cruelty, and he was no stranger to the brutal realities of medieval combat. Yet stories from chroniclers of the time emphasize his generosity, especially toward prisoners, and his adherence to a code of honor uncommon in those turbulent days. In 1099, Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar died, still defending Valencia from encroaching enemies. His death marked the end of an era, but his legend only grew. He was buried in the Cathedral of Valencia, and tales of his life spread far beyond the borders of Spain. El Cid's legacy is multifaceted. He represents the ideal knight, brave, loyal, and honorable, yet pragmatic and at times ruthless. His life reflects the complexity of medieval Spain, a land where Christian and Muslim worlds collided and mingled in war, politics, and culture. Through the centuries, El Cid has inspired countless works of literature, music, and art. His story immortalized in the famous medieval epic El Cantar de Mio Cid, which celebrates his deeds and virtues. For many, El Cid symbolizes the struggle for identity, honor, and survival in a world of chaos. He was a man who transcended his time, becoming more than a warrior, a legend who embodies the spirit of an age. Now, as you prepare to rest, picture the sun setting over the plains of Castile, the distant clatter of horses fading into silence, and the quiet strength of a knight whose courage still lights the path through history. Let the story of El Cid guide you gently into dreams filled with valor, honor, and the timeless call of adventure. Sleep well, dear dreamer, and may the spirit of El Cid inspire your own journey through the night. As you close your eyes tonight, carry with you the courage and loyalty of El Cid, a hero who reminds us that true strength lies in honor and heart. Sleep well, dear traveler of history. Sweet dreams. 9. Vlad the Impaler, inspiration for Dracula. Have you ever wondered what kind of darkness lies behind legends that chill the bones and stir the imagination? What stories hide in the shadows of history that inspired the most famous vampire tale ever told? The name Vlad the Impaler evokes images of terror and cruelty, but behind the horror is a man shaped by a brutal world, a warrior prince whose fierce resolve left an indelible mark on history and on fiction alike. This is the story of Vlad III, also known as Vlad Dracula, a ruler whose name became legend and whose legacy is as complex as it is fearsome. Vlad was born in 1431 in Transylvania, a rugged region on the edges of Europe, now part of modern Romania. His family, the House of Draculesti, was part of the noble lineage of Wallachia, a principality caught between empires and constantly under threat from the powerful Ottoman Turks to the south and rival noble factions to the north and west. His father, Vlad II Dracul, was a man who had secured his power through alliances and treaties, including with the Ottoman sultans. The name Dracul came from his membership in the Order of the Dragon, a chivalric order founded to defend Christian Europe against the Ottoman threat. Vlad's family was entrenched in a world where loyalty was fragile and survival required both cunning and ruthless strength. From his early years, Vlad III's life was marked by conflict and political intrigue. When Vlad was a young boy, his father made a fateful decision to send Vlad and his younger brother as hostages to the Ottoman court, a harsh but common practice to ensure the loyalty of vassal states. This captivity exposed Vlad to the might of the Ottoman Empire, the culture of its court, and the brutal reality of political power plays. It was a formative experience that hardened him and instilled in him a fierce hatred for the Ottomans, as well as an understanding of fear and power. When Vlad finally returned to Wallachia as a young man, his country was in turmoil, torn by rival factions and the constant threat of invasion. The throne of Wallachia was not a peaceful inheritance, but a prize fought over with swords and treachery. Vlad's rise to power was as much a matter of blood and battle as it was of strategy. He seized the throne in 1456, after a brutal campaign to reclaim his rightful place. His rule was immediately challenged by enemies inside and outside Wallachia, Hungarian nobles, rival boyars, and the expanding Ottoman Empire. Vlad's early reign was marked by efforts to consolidate his power and restore order in a land fractured by corruption and lawlessness. He was a strict ruler who demanded loyalty and obedience, but it was his terrifying methods that made him both feared and infamous. Vlad was notorious for his use of impalement as a method of execution, an agonizing punishment where victims were pierced on a wooden stake and left to die slowly. This gruesome practice became his signature, a tool both for justice and for terror. His enemies and those who might oppose him learned quickly that rebellion would be met not just with defeat, but with horror. The turning point in Vlad's life and reign came with his ruthless campaign against the Ottoman Empire. Determined to protect Wallachia from Turkish domination, Vlad waged guerrilla warfare and brutal attacks on Ottoman forces. His strategy was not just to defeat the enemy, but to instill terror. He famously impaled thousands of Ottoman soldiers and prisoners, leaving their bodies displayed along the roads to send a chilling message. One legendary story tells of Vlad inviting a large group of Ottoman envoys to a feast, only to reveal that their leader had been impaled just outside the hall, an act symbolizing defiance and warning. This period of terror extended to his own people as well. Vlad was ruthless in dealing with traitors and corrupt nobles, often using extreme violence to maintain order. His rule was marked by a strict code of justice that was uncompromising, sometimes to a fault. Chroniclers described him as a man both cruel and just, feared by all but respected for his unyielding commitment to law and order. His reputation spread far and wide, not only in Eastern Europe but across the continent, painting him alternately as a brutal tyrant and a defender of his people. But with cruelty came vulnerability. Vlad's enemies were many, and the political landscape was treacherous. He was overthrown, captured, and imprisoned at various points, his fortunes shifting with the tides of war and alliance. Yet each time Vlad returned to power, his legend growing stronger. The final years of Vlad the Impaler remain shrouded in mystery. He died in battle around 1476, fighting to defend his land from the Ottomans and rival factions. His death was as violent and dramatic as his life, but his story did not end there. The legacy of Vlad Dracula lived on, passed down through stories and folklore. His name inspired Bram Stoker's 1897 novel, Dracula, forever linking the historical figure with the mythic vampire whose thirst for blood became a symbol of eternal terror. Looking back, Vlad the Impaler's life is a complex tapestry of courage, cruelty, and survival. He was a product of a brutal age, a leader who used fear as a weapon, but also sought to protect his homeland from overwhelming forces. His story raises questions about the cost of power and the thin line between justice and cruelty. Now, as you close your eyes, imagine the dark forests of Transylvania at twilight, the echo of horses' hooves fading into the mist, and the shadow of a lone warrior standing firm against the night. Let the tale of Vlad the Impaler drift softly through your mind, a story of legend and history intertwined, guiding you gently into dreams filled with mystery and ancient courage. Sleep well, dear dreamer, and may the night carry you safely through the shadows of time. As you rest tonight, Let the fierce spirit of Vlad the Impaler remind you of the strength hidden in darkness and the stories that shape our dreams. Sleep well, dear traveler of history. Sweet dreams. 10. Marco Polo explorer who traveled to China. Have you ever wondered what it must have been like to journey across the vast, unknown lands when maps were scarce and the world seemed endless? To ride for years through deserts, mountains, and foreign kingdoms, discovering places no European had seen before? Imagine the courage and curiosity it took to set off into a world so different, so mysterious that your tales would inspire generations to dream of distant lands and adventures. This is the incredible story of Marco Polo, the Venetian merchant who traveled farther than most dared all the way to the court of the great Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan in China. Marco Polo was born in 1254 in Venice, a bustling city-state that thrived on trade and exploration. His family were merchants, well-connected and familiar with the flow of goods and ideas between East and West. From a young age, Marco listened to stories of exotic places, spices, silks, and treasures that came from lands beyond the seas and deserts. The world was changing, trade routes were expanding, and the Mongol Empire, under powerful rulers, was connecting vast territories across Asia. When Marco was about 17, his father Niccolo and his uncle Maffeo returned from a long journey east, bringing incredible stories of the lands they had seen: Persia, Central Asia, and most astonishingly, the court of Kublai Khan, the Mongol emperor who ruled over China and much of Asia. Inspired by their tales, the Polos decided to embark on an even greater expedition, one that would take them across the Silk Road, the legendary trade route that connected Europe to Asia over deserts, mountains, and hostile territories. The journey began in 1271. Marco, his father, and uncle set off from Venice, traveling overland through the Middle East, Persia, and the vast steppes of Central Asia. Their caravan passed through lands ruled by diverse peoples and cultures: Persians, Turks, Mongols, and many others. The Silk Road was no easy route. It was a dangerous passage filled with bandits, treacherous weather, and political turmoil. But the Polos were skilled traders and diplomats, and their perseverance carried them through. After years of travel, they finally reached the court of Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan and founder of the Yuan dynasty in China. Kublai Khan was a fascinating ruler, ambitious, intelligent, and deeply curious about the world beyond his empire. He welcomed the Polos with great honor, intrigued by their knowledge of Europe and eager to learn more about distant lands. Marco quickly became more than just a visitor. He became an envoy and trusted advisor to the Khan. For nearly 2 decades, Marco Polo lived in the imperial court, traveling throughout the vast empire on missions for Kublai Khan. He journeyed across China's great rivers and mountains, visited bustling cities, remote provinces, and even distant islands. He witnessed the splendor of the Forbidden City, the marvels of Chinese culture, inventions like paper money and coal, and the organized administration of one of the largest empires in history. Marco's experiences were extraordinary. He saw technologies and customs unknown in Europe, gunpowder used in warfare, complex postal systems, advanced irrigation, and magnificent palaces. His descriptions were so detailed and vivid that when he finally returned to Venice, many found his tales hard to believe. To some, his stories sounded like fantasy or exaggeration. In 1292, after over 20 years away, the Polos began their long journey home. Returning by sea, they faced storms and pirates. Yet they finally arrived back in Venice in 1295. But fate had more twists in store for Marco. Venice was at war with the rival city-state of Genoa, and Marco was soon captured and imprisoned. In jail, he met a fellow prisoner who urged him to write down his incredible adventures. Thus, The Travels of Marco Polo was born, a book that would inspire explorers like Christopher Columbus and shape Western understanding of Asia for centuries. Despite skepticism about the accuracy of some accounts, The book opened minds to the vastness of the world and the possibilities of travel. Marco Polo's life was not just about adventure, but about bridging worlds. He was a pioneer who connected East and West, laying groundwork for the age of exploration. His legacy is a testament to curiosity, courage, and the human desire to explore beyond the horizon. Now, as you drift to sleep, imagine the endless silk road stretching beneath a starlit sky, the sound of camels' footsteps on desert sands, and the distant call of unfamiliar cities. Let Marco Polo's journey guide your dreams through mountains, rivers, and ancient palaces, reminding you that the world is full of wonders waiting to be discovered. Sleep well, dear traveler of history, and may your dreams carry you on adventures beyond the stars. 11. Raja Chola, one Tamil emperor who built great temples. Have you ever stood before a towering temple so magnificent that it seems to hold the very spirit of an empire? Have you wondered who built these grand monuments and what stories lie buried within their walls? What kind of man dreams so boldly to shape the very stones of history and carve his name into eternity? This is the tale of Raja Chola, the king who transformed southern India into a mighty empire and left behind a legacy of stone and spirit that still captivates hearts today. Born in the late 10th century CE in the fertile lands of Tamil Nadu, Raja Chola I was the scion of the illustrious Chola dynasty. The Cholas, whose roots stretched back centuries, had once been a minor power overshadowed by larger neighbors. But the times were changing. Raja was born into a royal family that thirsted for resurgence, a family determined to restore the Chola name to greatness. From his earliest days, Raja showed signs of a leader who was not content with mere survival or defense. His childhood was steeped in the rich culture of Tamil Nadu, a land known for its literature, music, and devotion. The young prince absorbed the wisdom of ancient texts and learned about the traditions of kingship, justice, and warfare. But beyond books, Raja was fascinated by the idea of lasting legacy. Unlike kings before him, who sought only fleeting glory, Raja dreamed of monuments, temples that would stand for millennia, celebrating the divine and the might of his dynasty. As he grew into manhood, Raja was not just a scholar, but a skilled warrior and strategist. The political landscape of southern India was fragmented and fiercely contested. Various small kingdoms jostled for power, and the Cholas' main rivals included the Pandyas and Cheras, both ambitious and well-established. Yet Raja's ambition was clear: to unite the Tamil lands and extend the Chola influence across the seas. His rise to power began in 985 CE, when he ascended the throne after his predecessor, Gandaraditya. Though the Chola realm was modest, Raja immediately set about strengthening his position. He reorganized the army, improved the navy, and consolidated internal governance. Raja was a shrewd ruler who understood that military might alone would not suffice. He invested in administration, patronized art and culture, and fostered agriculture and trade. One of his early acts as emperor was to restore and enhance the famed Chola temples, many of which had been damaged or neglected during previous conflicts. But Raja envisioned something greater, a grand temple that would outshine all others, dedicated to the great Hindu god, Shiva. This vision would become the Brihadiswara temple in Thanjavur, a masterpiece of architecture and devotion that would become a symbol of his reign. Raja's early reign was marked by steady expansion through diplomacy and warfare. He waged successful campaigns against neighboring kingdoms, gradually bringing the Tamil regions under a single Chola rule. His navy, one of the most powerful of the time, extended Chola influence across the seas to Sri Lanka and even parts of Southeast Asia, including the Malacca Strait and the islands of Indonesia. The turning point in Raja's reign was his military conquest of the Pandya kingdom. The Pandyas had been longtime rivals, and their defeat was crucial to the Chola ascendancy. This victory not only secured the southern frontier, but also gave Raja control over rich pearl fisheries and trade routes, enhancing the kingdom's wealth. With his empire expanding, Raja turned his attention more fervently to cultural patronage. The Brihadiswara temple, constructed between 1003 and 1010 CE, was the jewel in his crown. Built entirely of granite, an enormous feat given the technology of the time, the temple rises majestically with a towering vimana, temple tower, that reaches nearly 66 meters into the sky. The temple complex includes intricately carved sculptures, frescoes, and inscriptions that tell the story of the Chola dynasty and its gods. The construction of the temple was a massive undertaking, involving thousands of artisans, architects, and laborers. Raja's vision was clear. This temple was to be a living testament of the divine right of kings and the glory of the Chola Empire. It became a religious, cultural, and economic center, drawing pilgrims and traders from far and wide. During this period, Raja also supported Tamil literature, music, and dance. His court was a hub of intellectual activity where poets and scholars flourished. The king himself was a devotee of Shiva, and many religious works from this era reflect the deep spiritual undercurrents of his rule. But no reign is without challenges. The vast Chola Empire required constant vigilance against internal rebellions and external threats. Raja faced opposition from regional chieftains and neighboring kingdoms who sought to reclaim lost power. However, his military campaigns were typically decisive, employing well-trained troops and efficient administration. As years passed, Raja's empire grew to encompass most of the Tamil region, parts of modern-day Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka, as well as overseas territories. He laid the foundation for what would become the greatest Chola Empire under his successors. Yet Raja was not just a conqueror or a builder of monuments. He was a ruler who sought to balance power with justice. His inscriptions often emphasize fair governance, tax reforms, and protection of his subjects. He fostered agricultural development, which supported the empire's economic strength. Eventually, as with all great rulers, the final chapter of Raja's life approached. He passed away around 1014 CE, leaving behind an empire stronger and more prosperous than it had ever been. His son, Rajendra Chola would carry forward his legacy, expanding the empire even further. Raja Chola's historical meaning is profound. He is remembered as the king who revived the Chola dynasty from relative obscurity to unprecedented heights. His temples stand as eternal monuments, blending art, devotion, and imperial power. The Brihadiswara Temple remains a UNESCO World Heritage Site, drawing admiration for its scale, beauty, and engineering marvel. Raja's reign symbolizes a golden age of Tamil culture, statecraft, and architecture. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine the towering spires of Thanjavur reaching toward the sky, the chants of priests echoing through vast halls, and the hands of thousands who carve stone with devotion and skill. Let Raja Chola's story inspire you to dream boldly and build legacies that last beyond a lifetime. Sleep well, dear dreamer of history. Sweet dreams. 12. Prithviraj Chauhan Rajput king known for bravery. Have you ever heard of a warrior so bold that his name echoes through centuries, stirring the heart with tales of valor, honor, and tragic loss? Do you know the story of a king who ruled fiercely over northern India, whose sword shone brightly in battle, but whose fate was sealed by fate and betrayal? This is the story of Prithviraj Chauhan, the Rajput king whose bravery became legend, and whose life still captivates the imagination of history lovers and dreamers alike. Born into the illustrious Chauhan dynasty in the mid-12th century CE, Prithviraj was the son of Someshvara, the ruler of the kingdom centered in Ajmer and Delhi. From the very beginning, his life was marked by the stirrings of greatness. The Chauhans were among the prominent Rajput clans, known for their fierce independence and warrior ethos. Prithviraj's early years were steeped in the traditions of valor, honor, and loyalty that defined Rajput culture. His childhood was not one of mere luxury or comfort, but rather one of rigorous training and preparation for the responsibilities of kingship. He learned the arts of warfare from an early age, mastering the sword, bow, and horseback riding. Alongside martial skills, he was also educated in poetry, statecraft, and religion, embodying the ideal Rajput king, both a warrior and a cultured leader. Prithviraj's rise to power was marked by determination and ambition. After his father's death, he inherited the throne of Ajmer and Delhi, two of the most important cities in northern India. But the political landscape was turbulent. The Indian subcontinent was fragmented into many small kingdoms, constantly fighting for dominance. Additionally, new threats loomed on the horizon. Muslim rulers from the north were advancing into Indian territories, challenging the Rajput hold on power. Despite these challenges, Prithviraj quickly established himself as a formidable ruler. His early reign was marked by military campaigns against rival Rajput clans in neighboring kingdoms. His charisma and courage inspired his troops, and his reputation as a brave and just ruler spread across the land. Many tales describe his prowess in battle, where he often personally led his men, fighting with unmatched skill and fearlessness. A turning point in Prithviraj's reign came with the arrival of Muhammad Ghori, the ambitious ruler from the Ghurid Empire in present-day Afghanistan. Ghori sought to expand his empire into northern India, a land rich in resources and strategic importance. The confrontation between Prithviraj Chauhan and Muhammad Ghori would become one of the most famous episodes in Indian medieval history. The first major battle between the two occurred at Tarain in 1191 CE. Prithviraj's forces met Ghori's army with fierce resistance. The battle was long and brutal, but ultimately Prithviraj emerged victorious, forcing Ghori to retreat. This victory was celebrated across Rajput territories and solidified Prithviraj's status as the protector of his realm. However, this triumph was short-lived. In 1192 CE, Muhammad Ghori returned with a larger and better prepared army. The Second Battle of Tarain proved disastrous for Prithviraj. Despite his courage and tactical acumen, the Rajput forces were overwhelmed by Ghori's superior strategy and weaponry. Prithviraj was captured in the aftermath. The period of defeat and captivity marked a dark chapter in Prithviraj's life and reign. Various legends surround his capture and death, many tinged with heroic and tragic themes. One popular story tells that even while in prison, Prithviraj remained defiant and brave, refusing to bow to his captors. According to legend, he composed poems mocking Muhammad Ghori and awaited an opportunity to reclaim his honor. In one famous tale, Prithviraj is said to have killed Muhammad Ghori, using a bow and arrow after being taken to Ghori's court, blindfolded, a final act of valor that immortalized his name. Whether myth or reality, these stories highlight the indomitable spirit that defined Prithviraj Chauhan's legacy. The fall of Prithviraj. Chauhan symbolized more than just the defeat of a single king. It marked a pivotal moment in Indian history. His loss paved the way for the establishment of Muslim rule in northern India, leading to centuries of new dynasties and cultural changes. Yet, for the Rajputs and many others, Prithviraj became a symbol of courage, honor, and the fight to protect one's land and heritage against overwhelming odds. Beyond warfare, Prithviraj's reign is remembered for its promotion of arts and culture. He was a poet himself and a patron of Sanskrit and Hindi literature. The romanticized version of his life often emphasizes his love story with Princess Sanyogita, whose daring elopement with Prithviraj adds a human dimension to the tales of battles and politics. Despite his eventual defeat, Prithviraj Chauhan's legacy endures as a beacon of bravery and resistance. His story is taught in schools, celebrated in folk songs, and dramatized in plays and films. The Rajput ideal of valor and sacrifice remains closely tied to his name. As you close your eyes tonight, picture the clashing of swords on the dusty plains of Terrain, the ringing of war cries, and the fearless gaze of a young king who fought for his people with every breath. Let Prithviraj Chauhan's story remind you that even in the face of great adversity, courage and honor can shine brightly. Sleep well, dear dreamer of history. Sweet dreams. 13. Rani Durgavati, warrior queen who fought against Mughals. Have you ever wondered about a queen who, armed with nothing but courage and an iron will, stood alone against one of the mightiest empires in history? Do you know the story of a woman whose bravery shook the foundations of a kingdom and whose sacrifice still echoes through the forests and hills of central India? This is the story of Rani Durgavati, the warrior queen who defied the Mughals and chose honor over surrender. Born in 1524 CE into the royal family of the Gand kingdom, Rani Durgavati was a princess of uncommon spirit and intelligence. The Gands, a powerful tribal dynasty that ruled parts of central India, lived in a land of dense forests, rolling hills, and winding rivers, a land as wild and untamed as the queen herself would become. From her earliest days, Durgavati was trained not only in the arts of governance, but also in warfare, archery, and strategy, uncommon for many women of her time. Her childhood was a blend of royal discipline and the rugged realities of her mountainous homeland. Stories of her youthful exploits tell of her mastering the bow and arrow with exceptional skill, often outshining her male counterparts. Her father, Dalpat Shah, recognized her remarkable qualities, and it was no surprise when she was married to Dalpat's successor, Maharaja Dalpat Singh of the neighboring kingdom of Garamandla, cementing a powerful alliance. Upon the untimely death of her husband in 1548 CE, the throne fell to her young son, Veer Narayan. With the kingdom vulnerable and a child on the throne, Rani Durgavati assumed the role of regent, becoming the de facto ruler of Garhamandla. Her reign would be defined not by peaceful governance, but by the looming threat of Mughal expansion under Emperor Akbar, whose armies were relentlessly annexing the fragmented states of India. Despite being a woman in a male-dominated society, Durgavati's leadership was unquestioned. She governed with wisdom and courage, overseeing the administration, fostering agriculture, trade, and the arts. Her court attracted poets, scholars, and warriors, becoming a beacon of culture amid the turbulent times. But the peace was fragile. Akbar's generals, hungry to expand their dominion, cast their eyes on Garhamandla's rich lands. The Mughal Empire was a force unlike any other, well-equipped, highly organized, and driven by a vision of empire that would shape Indian history for centuries. They demanded submission from Durgavati, expecting her to bend the knee like so many rulers before her. Rani Durgavati's answer was a resolute refusal. She knew that surrender meant not only the loss of her kingdom, but the end of the Gand people's autonomy and spirit. Instead, she chose to prepare for war, mobilizing her forces, forging alliances with neighboring kingdoms, and turning the dense forests and rugged terrain of Garamandla into a strategic advantage. The stage was set for an epic confrontation, a battle not just of armies, but of wills and identities. In 1564 CE, the Mughal forces, led by General Asaf Khan, marched into Garamandla. The invading army was vast, equipped with artillery and cavalry that dwarfed the Gand forces in number and firepower. Yet Durgavati was undeterred. Her knowledge of the terrain allowed her to execute guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and surprise attacks that frustrated the invaders. The force echoed with the clash of steel and the cries of warriors, as Durgavati led from the front, inspiring her soldiers with her presence and bravery. Accounts describe her, dressed in armor, wielding a bow and sword, fighting alongside her troops with fierce determination. Despite her valor, the Mughal army's overwhelming numbers began to turn the tide. The war dragged on, draining resources and lives. Rani Durgavati, Ever the strategist sought to buy time, hoping for reinforcements and support from other Rajput and Gond rulers. But such aid never came in sufficient strength. The decisive battle took place near the Narmada River, where the two forces met in a final, brutal clash. Rani Durgavati fought valiantly, but defeat was imminent. Rather than surrender to the Mughals and suffer the humiliation of captivity, she made a tragic choice. She took her own life with her sword, choosing death over dishonor. Her sacrifice became a legend, immortalized in the folk songs and stories of central India. Rani Durgavati's death was not the end of her kingdom's spirit. Rather, it symbolized the fierce independence and resilience of the Gond people and the women who defied the odds. Historically, her reign is remembered as a rare and powerful example of female leadership and resistance in medieval India. She was one of the few queens who commanded armies, governed states, and stood unyielding against one of the most formidable empires in the world. Her legacy resonates beyond battles and politics. She became a symbol of courage, honor, and the struggle for sovereignty against overwhelming forces. Today, monuments, statues, and memorials in Madhya Pradesh honor her memory, and her story continues to inspire generations to fight for justice and dignity. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine the dense forests of Garhamandla, the clash of swords under the moonlight, and a queen whose spirit refused to be broken. Let Rani Durgavati's courage lull you into peaceful dreams, reminding you that even in the darkest times, bravery shines brightest. Sleep well, dear dreamer of history. Sweet dreams. 14. Rani Lakshmibai. Have you ever wondered what it truly means to be a warrior queen? What drives a woman to rise not just to power, but to lead a rebellion that shakes an empire? Do you know the fierce spirit of a queen who chose freedom over fear, who became a symbol of resistance against the mightiest empire of her time? This is the tale of Rani Lakshmibai, the Lioness of Jhansi, whose courage and sacrifice still echo in the heart of India. Born as Manikarnika Tambe on November 19, 1828, in the sacred city of Varanasi, Lakshmibai's early life was shaped by the rich culture of the Maratha warriors. Her father, Morapant Tambe, was a respected officer in the service of the Peshwas, and her mother, Bhagirathi Sapri, nurtured her with stories of valor, honor, and devotion to duty. From a young age, Manikarnika displayed a fierce independence and a natural aptitude for horsemanship, swordsmanship, and archery skills rare for girls of her era, but essential for her destiny. She trained with local warriors, mastering the martial arts with a determination that startled even her teachers. Her marriage in 1842 to Raja Gangadharrao Newalkar, the Maharaja of Jhansi, marked a new chapter in her life. She became Rani Lakshmibai, queen of a prosperous and strategically important kingdom in northern India. The couple shared a deep bond, and their only son, Damodar Rao, was born amidst hopes for a stable succession. But fate was cruel. The young prince died at an early age, and the Maharaja passed away in 1853, leaving no biological heir. The British East India Company, which controlled large parts of India under the doctrine of lapse, a policy that allowed them to annex states without a male heir, refused to recognize Lakshmibai's adopted son as the rightful successor. The British demanded that Jhansi be handed over, igniting a firestorm of resistance. Rani Lakshmibai, a woman scorned and betrayed, refused to bow to foreign rule. She resolved to protect her kingdom, her people, and her son's claim with every ounce of strength she possessed. Her rise to power was not simply a matter of inheritance. It was a battle of wills. She consolidated her forces, trained soldiers, and fortified Jhansi's defenses. Her leadership was remarkable, combining compassion for her people with ruthless resolve against invaders. When the Indian Rebellion of 1857 broke out, Lakshmibai became one of its foremost leaders. Her valor on the battlefield earned her the title Jhansi Ki Rani, the Queen of Jhansi. Mounted on horseback, dressed in warrior's attire, she led charges, inspired troops, and strategized against the British forces. The Siege of Jhansi in 1858 was a brutal and pivotal moment. British troops laid siege to her fort, bombarding it relentlessly. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, Lakshmi Bai's defense was fierce. She inspired not only her soldiers, but also the local populace to stand united against oppression. As the siege wore on and defeat seemed imminent, Lakshmi Bai made a daring escape on horseback, clutching her son tightly. She fled to the forests and joined other rebel leaders, continuing the fight for independence. Her final battle came near the village of Gwalior, where she fought valiantly alongside fellow freedom fighters. Tragically, she was struck down in combat on June 18, 1858. Accounts say she died fighting bravely, refusing to be captured. Era Rani Lakshmi Bai's death was not the end, but the beginning of a legend. She became a symbol of resistance and female empowerment, inspiring countless Indians in the struggle for freedom. Her story has been immortalized in poems, songs, and films, and her legacy continues to ignite the flame of courage in hearts worldwide. As you drift into sleep tonight, imagine the thunder of hooves, the clang of swords, and the fierce gaze of a queen who would rather die than live enslaved. Let Rani Lakshmi Bai's spirit protect your dreams and fill them with bravery and hope. Sleep well, dear dreamer of history. Sweet dreams. 15. Maharana Pratap fought against Akbar and Haldigati. Have you ever wondered what it truly means to fight for one's honor and homeland against overwhelming odds? What kind of courage and sacrifice does it take to stand tall when the greatest empire of the time marches to claim your land? Do you know the story of a warrior who chose freedom over submission, who rode his loyal steed into battle against impossible odds? This is the tale of Maharana Pratap, the Lion of Mewar, whose legacy of valor and resistance still inspires millions today. Maharana Pratap Singh was born in 1540 in the kingdom of Mewar, a rugged land of hills and forests in present-day Rajasthan, India. From his earliest days, Pratap was immersed in the war traditions of the Sisodia Rajputs, a proud lineage that traced its roots back to myth and legend, revered for its fierce independence and unyielding honor. His father, Maharana Uday Singh II, was a respected ruler who had fought tirelessly to defend Mewar from external threats. Pratap was trained in the arts of war from childhood, mastering swordsmanship, archery, horsemanship, and the strategies of guerrilla warfare suited to the difficult terrain of his homeland. Pratap's childhood was filled with stories of valor and sacrifice, the exploits of Rajput heroes who had never bowed to foreign invaders. These tales forged his spirit, instilling in him a fierce pride and an unwavering commitment to protect his land and people. When Uday Singh passed away in 1572, Pratap ascended the throne of Mewar. But his rise was not without challenges. The powerful Mughal Empire, under Emperor Akbar, was expanding rapidly across India. Akbar had already secured many Rajput kingdoms through diplomacy, marriage alliances, or military force. But Mewar remained a proud holdout. Akbar sent emissaries to Pratap, urging him to accept Mughal suzerainty and join the empire. But Pratap refused. For him, surrender meant dishonor and the loss of freedom. This defiance set the stage for one of the most legendary conflicts in Indian history. The Mughal forces marched towards Mewar, determined to crush this last bastion of resistance. In 1576, near the narrow mountain pass of Haldigati, the two armies met. The battle was fierce and brutal. Pratap's forces were outnumbered and less well-equipped, but they fought with unmatched bravery and determination. Mounted on his trusted horse Chetak, Pratap led charges that broke through the enemy lines. Chetak himself became a symbol of loyalty and valor. Despite being mortally wounded during the battle, the horse carried Pratap to safety before collapsing. Though the Mughals claimed victory at Haldigati, the battle was far from over. Pratap retreated into the hills and forests, waging a guerrilla war against the invaders. He refused to give up an inch of his kingdom, striking at Mughal supply lines and forts, slowly reclaiming territory. His life in exile was harsh. Constantly on the move, with limited resources, Pratap endured hunger, cold, and the loss of many loyal companions. Yet his resolve never wavered. His determination to restore Muir's independence became legendary. Pratap's story is not just one of war, but of leadership, sacrifice, and unbreakable spirit. His struggle inspired other kingdoms and the common people, symbolizing the eternal fight for freedom against tyranny. He died in 1597, far from the throne he loved, but his legacy lived on. Today, Maharana Pratap is remembered as a hero who stood for honor and independence, a symbol of courage that resonates across centuries. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine the roar of battle, the galloping hooves of Chetak, and the fierce light in Maharana Pratap's eyes as he fought for his land and his people. Let his bravery fill your dreams with strength and hope. Sleep well, dear warrior of history. Sweet dreams. 16. Krishnadevaraya Vijayanagara Emperor known for prosperity and art. Have you ever wondered what it takes to rule a kingdom where art flourishes as much as the armies? To be a leader who not only conquers lands, but also wins the hearts of poets, scholars, and artists? What if I told you there once lived a king who was as fierce on the battlefield as he was generous in the courts of culture? This is the story of Krishnadevaraya, the mighty emperor of Vijayanagara, whose reign became a golden era of prosperity, valor, and creativity. Krishnadevaraya was born in 1471 into the Tuluva dynasty that ruled the prosperous Vijayanagara Empire in southern India. From a young age, he was groomed not only as a warrior, but also as a patron of knowledge and arts. His father, Tuluva Narasanayaka, had already established the family's power base. But it was Krishnadevaraya who would take the empire to unprecedented heights. Krishnadevaraya's childhood was marked by rigorous training, both physical and intellectual. He learned to wield the sword and command troops, but he also mastered Sanskrit, Telugu, Kannada, and Tamil languages. This multilingual education would later help him connect with his diverse subjects and patronize a rich variety of cultural traditions. When he ascended the throne in 1509, the Vijayanagara Empire was at a crossroads. The powerful sultanates of the Deccan were constant threats from the north, while the southern regions demanded effective governance and prosperity. Krishnadevaraya proved to be the perfect blend of a fierce warrior and a wise statesman. His military campaigns were swift and effective. One of his most famous battles was against the combined forces of the Deccan Sultanates at the Battle of Rachur in 1520. The fort of Rachur was strategically important, and Krishnadevaraya's victory there secured the empire's northern borders. His military genius extended beyond brute force. He was a master strategist, often outmaneuvering enemies with clever tactics and diplomacy. Yet, Krishnadevaraya's greatness was not limited to his battlefield prowess. He was a magnificent patron of arts and literature. His reign witnessed the flowering of the Vijayanagara culture, with poets, artists, and scholars flocking to his court in Hampi, the empire's splendid capital. Krishnadevaraya himself was a scholar and poet. He composed the famous Telugu work Amuktamayada, an epic poem about the love between the goddess Andal and Lord Vishnu. This work is still celebrated for its poetic beauty and spiritual depth. The emperor's interest in literature inspired a cultural renaissance that saw the rise of many poets and writers who enriched Telugu, Kannada, and Sanskrit literature. The emperor's support extended to architecture as well. Under his rule, the Vijayanagara Empire built magnificent temples, palaces, and public works. The iconic Vitala Temple, with its musical pillars, and Grand Hazararama Temple, stand as eternal testaments to the empire's artistic brilliance. The capital city, Hampi, became a thriving center of commerce, religion, and art, bustling with merchants, artisans, and pilgrims. Krishnadevaraya was also a benevolent ruler who cared deeply about the welfare of his people. He improved irrigation systems, built tanks and canals to support agriculture, and encouraged trade with distant lands. The empire's prosperity under his reign attracted traders from Persia, Arabia, and even Europe, making Vijayanagara a cosmopolitan hub. Despite his power and riches, Krishnadevaraya was known for his humility and accessibility. He often disguised himself to mingle with common folk and understand their struggles. This earned him the love and respect of his subjects, who saw him not just as a distant ruler, but as a compassionate leader. However, his reign was not without challenges. The constant threat of invasion by rival sultanates forced Krishnadevaraya to maintain a strong military presence. Yet he balanced warfare with diplomacy, forging alliances and managing internal dissent to keep the empire stable. The emperor's personal life was marked by devotion and tragedy. His chief queen, Tirumala Devi, was not only his beloved partner, but also an able administrator who supported his policies and helped govern the empire. Together they symbolized the ideal royal couple, devoted to the welfare of their kingdom. Krishnadevaraya's death in 1529 marked the end of an era. The empire gradually declined after his reign, but his legacy lived on. He had set a golden standard for kingship, combining valor, wisdom, and cultural patronage in a way few rulers have matched. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine the vibrant courts of Hampi, the sound of temple bells mingling with the verses of poets, and the mighty roar of Krishnadevaraya's armies defending their land. Let the spirit of this great emperor inspire your dreams with courage, creativity, and compassion. Sleep well, dear seeker of history. Sweet dreams. 17. Razia Sultana, first and only female ruler of Delhi Sultanate. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to rule a kingdom when no woman before you had dared to command armies and lead a sprawling empire in a world ruled by men? What kind of courage and resolve would it take to shatter centuries of tradition and become a queen in your own right? This is the story of Razia Sultana, the fierce, bold, and extraordinary ruler who dared to defy the odds and become the first female sultan of Delhi. Razia was born into the turbulent world of the Delhi Sultanate in the early 13th century, around 1205 CE, during the reign of her father, Sultan Shams-ud-Din Iltutmish. The Sultanate was a Muslim kingdom stretching across northern India, constantly under threat from rival factions, internal rebellions, and ambitious nobles. It was a time when power was measured by the sword and loyalty was a rare currency. From the very beginning, Razia's life was marked by the unusual. Unlike most royal daughters of her time, she received an education usually reserved for princes. Her father recognized her sharp intellect, courage, and leadership qualities. He personally ensured she was trained in administration, military strategy, and statecraft. In a society where women were expected to stay behind palace walls, Razia's upbringing was a radical exception. Razia's early years were a mix of royal luxury and rigorous discipline. She was trained in horseback riding, archery, and swordsmanship. Stories say she even disguised herself as a man to ride alongside her father's troops in battles. Her sharp mind and keen sense of justice made her a favorite among the common people and loyal soldiers alike. When Sultan Iltutmish fell ill and passed away in 1236, the question of succession became a storm brewing behind palace doors. Though Razia was his most capable heir, the nobles and religious leaders hesitated. They wanted a male ruler, fearing that a woman could not command armies or control the ambitious Turkish nobles who held the real power. Initially, Iltutmish's sons were placed on the throne, but their reigns were short and marked by incompetence and infighting. The kingdom descended into chaos, and the nobles themselves grew divided. Razia, however, waited patiently, gathering support among the people and loyal factions. The turning point came in 1236 when Razia was finally proclaimed sultan, breaking centuries of male-only succession. She boldly stepped out into a world that doubted her, and with fierce determination, she set out to prove her worth. Razia did not seek to be a mere figurehead. She took the reins of power with authority, leading from the front. She took a title befitting a ruler sultan, not a queen consort or regent, signaling that she demanded to be recognized as a sovereign in her own right. She wore the male attire of royalty, rode into battle alongside her generals, and held court where she dispensed justice with fairness. Razia's reign was marked by bold reforms and efforts to stabilize the kingdom. She worked tirelessly to curb the power of unruly nobles and administrators who had grown used to unchecked power. Unlike many rulers of the time, she was known for her accessibility. She opened her court to commoners and treated all with respect, regardless of their status. However, Razia's rise was not welcomed by everyone. The conservative Turkish nobles, who wielded immense influence, resented having a woman as their ruler. They viewed her reforms and strong personality as threats to their privileges. Many conspired against her, spreading rumors and fomenting rebellions. One of the most significant challenges Razia faced was from a noble named Malik al-Tunya, the governor of Bathinda. Initially her adversary, Malik later became her ally and eventually her husband. Their alliance was a testament to Razia's ability to form bonds beyond political rivalries. Despite her efforts, the conspiracies grew, and her enemies managed to overthrow her in 1240. Razia was captured, imprisoned, and then escaped with the help of Malik al-Tunya. The two fled together, trying to reclaim her throne, but their attempt ended in tragedy. Razia and Malik were defeated by rival forces, and she died young, her dreams of a lasting reign cut short. Her death marked the end of the Tughlaq dynasty's initial hold on Delhi, but her legacy endured far beyond her years. What makes Razia Sultana's story so remarkable is not just that she was a female ruler in a male-dominated world, but that she ruled with vision, courage, and justice. She challenged societal norms and became a symbol of empowerment for women and rulers alike. Her story is a stirring reminder that leadership transcends gender and that true power lies in courage, wisdom, and the will to serve one's people. Razia's life continues to inspire generations, her legend echoing through the corridors of history as a beacon of boldness and resilience. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine the palace halls of Delhi echoing with the footsteps of a queen who wore the crown of a sultan. Let the courage of Razia Sultana guide you into a realm of dreams filled with strength, justice, and hope. Sleep well, brave dreamer. Sweet dreams. 18. Sher Shah Suri built GT Road, known for reforms. Have you ever wondered how one man could transform an entire empire with bold ideas that still shape the world centuries later? How a ruler rising from humble beginnings could outsmart mighty emperors and leave behind a legacy of justice, roads, and reforms so grand they are remembered even today? This is the story of Sher Shah Suri, the warrior king who built the legendary Grand Trunk Road and changed India forever. Sher Shah Suri was born as Farid Khan around 1486 in the rugged mountains of Sasaram in present-day Bihar, India. He belonged to the Sur tribe, an Afghan Pashtun lineage that valued honor, bravery, and loyalty. Farid's early life was far from royal luxury. It was shaped by the harsh realities of frontier life and tribal politics. But even as a young boy, his sharp mind and bold spirit set him apart. He began his career modestly, serving as a soldier and later a commander under the Lode dynasty, which ruled northern India before the Mughals. The political landscape of India was fractured, The Delhi Sultanate was weak, and rival factions vied for control. Farid Khan's rise was a story of grit, intelligence, and a vision for a stronger, more just empire. When the Mughal Emperor Babur defeated the Lodi dynasty in 1526 at the Battle of Panipat, the political tides shifted dramatically. Farid saw opportunity amidst chaos. Using both diplomacy and force, he carved out his own path, gradually building a power base. He earned the title Sher Shah the Lion King after a famous duel where he killed a lion with his bare hands, symbolizing his fierce courage and leadership. By 1540, Sher Shah had defeated the Mughal Emperor Humayun at the Battle of Kanauj, forcing him into exile and establishing the Sur dynasty over much of northern India. But Sher Shah was not just a conqueror. He was a visionary reformer, a ruler who transformed the very structure of governance, infrastructure, and society. One of Sher Shah's most enduring legacies is the construction of the Grand Trunk Road, a massive highway stretching over 2,500 kilometers from Bengal in the east to the Khyber Pass in the west. This road was more than just a trade route. It was the backbone of connectivity, enabling commerce, communication, and military movement across the vast subcontinent. The road he built is still in use today, serving as a lifeline for millions. But Sher Shah's reforms went far beyond roads. He revolutionized the administration of his empire with strict laws, efficient tax collection, and a transparent justice system. He introduced a uniform currency, the rupiah, which brought stability to trade and economy. His land revenue system was meticulously designed to be fair, assessing taxes based on land productivity rather than arbitrary levies, easing the burden on peasants. Sher Shah was known for his fairness and discipline. Stories speak of his mobile courts that traveled with him, where commoners could bring their grievances directly to the Sultan. His governance was marked by honesty, and he took measures to curb corruption among officials. Highways were dotted with rest houses, wells, and security posts, ensuring safe travel for merchants and pilgrims alike. However, Sher Shah's life was not without challenges. Constantly surrounded by enemies and threats, he fought numerous battles to defend and expand his empire. He was a brilliant military strategist who balanced ruthlessness with clemency. His conquests were swift, but he often rewarded loyalty and encouraged meritocracy. Tragically, Sher Shah's reign was cut short in 1545 when he died from an accidental explosion during a battle against the Bengal Sultanate. His death left a void that eventually led to the restoration of Mughal power under Humayun. Yet the foundations Sher Shah laid endured. Sher Shah's story is one of a man who rose from the ranks, built a powerful kingdom, and reshaped India's landscape and governance in ways that lasted centuries. His vision of a connected empire, ruled with justice and efficiency, still inspires leaders and historians alike. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine the vast roads stretching from the mountains to the plains, bustling with travelers and traders, under the watchful gaze of a lion-hearted king who dreamed of unity and prosperity for all. Let Sher Shah's legacy guide you into a restful sleep filled with strength and wisdom. Sleep well, traveler of history. Sweet dreams. 19. Amir Khusrau, poet, musician, and Sufi mystic. Have you ever wondered about the soul behind the music that echoes through the ages? The voice that turned words into magic and melody into a timeless bridge between cultures? What if I told you there was a man centuries ago whose poems and songs still sing in the heart of South Asia, today a man known as the Parrot of India, whose words could soothe kings and inspire mystics? This is the tale of Amir Khusrau, the immortal poet, musician, and Sufi mystic. Born in 1253 in the vibrant city of Patiali, in what is now Uttar Pradesh, India, Amir Khusrau was named Abul Hasan Yamin al-Din Khusrau after his father, who was himself a Persian nobleman and scholar. From an early age, Khusrau showed an extraordinary talent for language and the arts. His father's death when Khusrau was still a child left the family in modest circumstances, but the young Khusrau's genius was destined to shine far beyond these humble beginnings. His youth was shaped by the rich cultural tapestry of the Delhi Sultanate, a realm where Persian, Turkic, Indian, and Central Asian traditions mingled. As Khusrau grew, he mastered several languages: Persian, Arabic, Turkish, and the local Hindavi, which would later allow him to blend diverse traditions in his poetry and music. It was a period of political turbulence, but also great cultural flowering, where poets and artists thrived under royal patronage. Khusrau's rise to prominence began when he was invited to the court of Sultan Ghiyas-ud-Din Balban. His quick wit, eloquence, and extraordinary poetic ability caught the attention of the nobility, but it was under the reign of Sultan Alauddin Khalji and later Ghiyas-ud-Din Tughlaq that Khusrau truly flourished, becoming a court poet and musician whose works were celebrated throughout the empire. One of Khusrau's most remarkable contributions was his innovation in music. He is credited with enriching the classical Indian music tradition by introducing Persian instruments and blending Persian and Indian musical styles, laying the foundations for what would later become Hindustani classical music. He is often called the father of Qawwali, a devotional Sufi music form that continues to captivate audiences worldwide. Khusrau's poetry spans a vast range from lyrical ghazals to devotional hymns and historical masnavis. His verses are steeped in Sufi mysticism, celebrating divine love and the union of the soul with the eternal. His famous riddles, romantic verses, and spiritual poetry brought profound philosophy to everyday language, making the sublime accessible to all. His life, however, was not just about art. Amir Khusrau was also a witness to monumental historical events, including Mongol invasions and the rise of new sultans. Through his poetry and chronicles, he preserved invaluable insights into the politics, culture, and society of his time. He served not only as a poet, but also as a historian and courtier, weaving history and art into a seamless narrative. Despite the grandeur of court life, Khusrau remained humble and deeply spiritual. His devotion to his Sufi master, Nizamuddin Aliya, profoundly influenced his worldview and works. Their relationship exemplified the bond between teacher and disciple in Sufism, enriching Khusrau's spiritual depth and artistic output. But even great artists face challenges. Khusrau navigated the intrigues and uncertainties of the royal courts, balancing his roles as a court poet and a spiritual seeker. His ability to adapt, innovate, and inspire ensured his survival and legacy through changing political landscapes. Amir Khusrau passed away in 1325, but his legacy is eternal. His poetry is still recited, his music still performed, and his spiritual wisdom continues to inspire millions across South Asia and beyond. His life is a testament to the power of art to transcend time, cultures, and boundaries. As you close your eyes tonight, let the melodies of Khusrau's words and the mystery of his spirit carry you gently into a realm of dreams where poetry and music unite in a dance as old as time itself. Sleep well, dear dreamer of history. Sweet dreams. Take Period 20. Chhatrapati Shivaji, early modern but heroic figure. Did you know there was a young boy born in the rugged hills of Western India who defied mighty empires, carved a kingdom from seemingly impossible odds, and rewrote the meaning of courage and leadership forever? What if I told you his name still rings in the hearts of millions as a symbol of valor, strategy, and honor? This is the story of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, the lion-hearted founder of the Maratha Empire. From the very beginning, Shivaji's story is wrapped in the mystique of Maharashtra's Sahyadri Hills, steep, rugged, and full of hidden forts, secret passes, and ancient temples. He was born on February 19, 1630, at the Shivneri Fort to Shahaji Bhonsle, a Maratha nobleman in the service of the Deccan Sultanates. and Jijabai, a woman of fierce spirit and devout faith. His birth came at a time when the Deccan was a fractured land of competing powers, the declining Bijapur and Ahmadnagar sultanates, the expanding Mughal Empire under Shah Jahan, and the Portuguese and British nibbling away at the coasts. It was a turbulent era, filled with danger, intrigue, and opportunity. Shivaji's childhood was shaped by his mother Jijabai's strong influence. She instilled in him a deep sense of dharma, duty, justice, and devotion to Hindu traditions. Legends say that she told him stories of the great epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata, inspiring him with tales of righteous kings and brave warriors who fought to protect their people and uphold honor. Young Shivaji was naturally curious and restless. He learned swordsmanship, horseback riding, and guerrilla warfare techniques from local mentors and tribal warriors. From his tutor, Dadoji Kondeo, he absorbed lessons on administration and diplomacy. But more than skills, Shivaji developed a vision, a dream of self-rule for his people, free from foreign domination and oppression. As a teenager, Shivaji began to test his mettle. The region's forts were controlled by sultanate officers, often corrupt and brutal. Shivaji's first military exploits involved seizing small forts and raiding enemy outposts, demonstrating not only courage, but also brilliant strategy, preferring swift, surprise attacks over prolonged battles. At just 16, Shivaji captured the Torna fort, a major stronghold and symbolic beginning of his campaign. The act sent shockwaves through the region. A Maratha leader was rising, challenging the established order. His boldness attracted local chieftains and soldiers, who saw in him a leader who could restore pride and autonomy to their land. By 1645, Shivaji was firmly on the path to power, combining military skill with shrewd diplomacy. Unlike many contemporaries who relied solely on brute force, Shivaji understood the importance of winning hearts. He respected the customs and religions of his subjects, and his administration was noted for fairness and encouragement of trade and agriculture. One of the defining traits of Shivaji's leadership was his mastery of guerrilla warfare, often called Ganami Kava, hit-and-run tactics, perfectly suited for the rugged terrain of the Western Ghats. Using hidden mountain paths, secret caves, and well-planned ambushes, Shivaji's forces could strike the far more numerous Mughal and Sultanate armies and vanish before retaliation. His military successes included the capture of strategically vital forts Rajgarh, Pratapgarh, and Sindhudurg, each victory securing his foothold and projecting power. His navy, one of the first indigenous Indian naval forces, patrolled the Konkan coast, challenging the Portuguese and safeguarding trade routes. The Battle of Pratapgarh in 1659 stands as a legendary moment. Shivaji faced the army of Afzal Khan, a general sent by the Bijapur Sultanate to crush the rising Maratha. Afzal Khan was known for his brutal tactics, but Shivaji used intelligence, deception, and an ambush to kill Afzal Khan, turning the tide decisively. This victory cemented Shivaji's reputation as a formidable and cunning warrior. As Shivaji's influence grew, so did the threat from the Mughals under Aurangzeb. The Mughals sought to annex the Deccan and crush the Maratha rebellion. Shivaji faced invasions, sieges, and betrayals, but remained undefeated. In 1666, after a tense encounter, Aurangzeb invited Shivaji to his court in Agra, where Shivaji was initially treated as a guest, but soon found himself under house arrest. Displaying his trademark audacity, Shivaji escaped from Agra in a daring and clever plan, hiding in baskets of sweets and slipping past his guards. This escape became legendary, inspiring his followers and humiliating the Mughals. Back in Maharashtra, Shivaji continued to build his empire. In 1674, he was crowned as Chhatrapati Sovereign King at Raigad Fort, officially establishing the Maratha Empire. The coronation was a grand affair filled with religious rites, and symbolizing the assertion of Hindu self-rule during a period of foreign dominance. Shivaji's administration was progressive and efficient. He set up a council of ministers, known as the Ashtapradhan Mandal, to oversee various functions of the state revenue, military, foreign affairs, justice, and more. He promoted local languages and culture, encouraged arts, and maintained a disciplined and loyal army. Despite his firm stance against foreign rulers, Shivaji was a just and benevolent king to his subjects. His policies fostered agriculture, trade, and welfare. His famous Rajyavyavahara, state administration, balanced strong military readiness with civil governance. However, Shivaji's life was not without hardship. He faced betrayal by some allies, constant threats from larger empires, and the challenge of uniting diverse and fractious Maratha clans. But his charisma, intelligence, and unwavering commitment to his cause inspired loyalty among his followers. In his later years, Shivaji embarked on campaigns to expand his territory, including the conquest of forts in present-day Karnataka in the western coast. His navy continued to defend coastal areas against European powers, asserting Maratha sovereignty. On April 3, 1680, Shivaji passed away at the age of 50. His death was mourned deeply by his people, who saw in him not just a king, but a symbol of resistance, dignity, and self-rule. The legacy of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj is profound. He was a pioneer who forged a Hindu kingdom at a time of Muslim dominance, a master strategist who revolutionized warfare, and a visionary leader whose ideals continue to inspire. His life is celebrated in countless songs, stories, and festivals throughout Maharashtra and India. As you drift into sleep tonight, imagine the echo of war cries blending with temple bells in the Sahyadri Hills, the brave heart of a young warrior who dared to dream of freedom and forged a kingdom with courage and wisdom. Let his spirit guide your dreams into realms of valor and honor. Sleep well, brave dreamer. Sweet dreams. 21. Genghis Khan, founder of the Mongol Empire. Genghis Khan, born as Temujin around 1162 on the harsh and unforgiving Mongolian steppes, emerged from a childhood marked by hardship and turmoil to become one of history's most formidable conquerors and visionary leaders. The vast grassy plains of Mongolia, where fierce clans battled constantly for survival, shaped Temujin's character from the very beginning. His father, Yesugei, was a minor tribal chieftain of the Borjigin clan, respected but overshadowed by rival tribes. When Temujin was still young, tragedy struck as his father was poisoned by the Tatars, a rival group, leaving Temujin's family vulnerable and abandoned. At just around 9 or 10 years old, Temujin and his family were cast out, left to fend for themselves in the wilderness. This bitter experience of exile and struggle forged in him a steely resolve that would define his later life. His mother, Holan, became the pillar of strength and wisdom during those bleak years. She taught Temujin and his siblings not only how to survive in the wild, but also how to cultivate resilience, loyalty, and leadership. From these early lessons, Temujin absorbed the essential qualities that would one day make him a unifier and ruler of the Mongol tribes. The world he inhabited was one of constant danger and betrayal. Clans fought viciously over territory, resources, and honor, and trust was scarce. In this unforgiving environment, Temujin's determination to rise above petty tribal rivalries and unite the Mongols under one banner took shape. As he grew older, Temujin began to gather followers, not by birthright alone, but through charisma, merit, and an unwavering sense of justice. Unlike many tribal leaders who ruled by fear or inheritance, he believed loyalty was earned through fairness and shared hardship. His reputation as a fierce warrior and strategic leader spread as he conquered rival clans and forged alliances. One of his earliest tests was the kidnapping of his beloved wife, Borta, by a rival tribe. Temujin's daring rescue of her not only demonstrated his courage, but also cemented his authority and inspired loyalty among his followers. The turning point in Temujin's rise came in 1206, when the various Mongol tribes gathered at a great Kurultai, or tribal council, to declare him Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. This title was more than an honorific. It was a declaration of his authority to govern all Mongol tribes as one people. For centuries, the Mongols had been fragmented and scattered, but under Genghis Khan's leadership, they were united into a single powerful confederation. This unification allowed for the rapid expansion of what would become the largest contiguous empire in human history. Genghis Khan's military genius was unparalleled. His army was a tightly organized force built on meritocracy, discipline, and revolutionary tactics. He divided his warriors into units of tens, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s, each with clear command structures that allowed for rapid communication and flexible strategies on the battlefield. The Mongol horsemen were unmatched in mobility and marksmanship, capable of shooting arrows accurately while galloping at full speed. They could cover vast distances swiftly, often surprising enemies who were unprepared for such rapid movement. Beyond raw military power, Genghis Khan employed psychological warfare, spreading terror among his enemies to weaken their will to resist. He often spared the lives of those who surrendered quickly, encouraging others to avoid costly battles. He also placed great importance on intelligence and espionage, sending scouts and spies ahead to gather information about enemy positions and fortifications. This strategic mindset enabled the Mongols to conquer fortified cities that had long been considered impregnable by adapting technologies such as Chinese siege engines. The campaigns of conquest launched by Genghis Khan transformed the political and cultural landscape of Eurasia. Beginning with the subjugation of neighboring steppe tribes, his forces then struck the Khwarezm Empire after a grievous insult, the killing of his trade envoys. In response, the Mongol armies swept through Khwarezm cities with overwhelming speed and ferocity, devastating entire regions. Far from simply destroying, Genghis Khan's empire absorbed conquered peoples, incorporating their talents into his administration and military, regardless of ethnicity or origin. This inclusive policy allowed his empire to thrive as a melting pot of cultures, technologies, and ideas. Under Genghis Khan, the Mongol Empire expanded westward and southward, threatening the Jin dynasty in northern China and pushing deep into Central Asia. His armies moved swiftly and decisively, toppling kingdoms and reshaping borders. His conquests also paved the way for increased trade and cultural exchange along the Silk Road, which flourished under the security provided by Mongol rule. This created a bridge between East and West, facilitating the flow of goods, ideas, and technologies that had a lasting impact on world history. Genghis Khan was not merely a conqueror, but also a lawgiver and administrator. To maintain order over his vast and diverse empire, he promulgated the Yasa, a code of laws covering military discipline, taxation, religious tolerance, and social behavior. The Yasa ensured strict order, but also promoted justice and unity across the empire. It prohibited theft, adultery, and betrayal, while protecting trade and communication routes. Genghis Khan understood that ruling such a sprawling empire required not only force, but also fairness and clear governance. Despite his fearsome reputation for brutality on battlefield, Genghis Khan was also known for his pragmatic tolerance of different religions and cultures. He welcomed scholars, artisans, and traders from many backgrounds into his empire, fostering a vibrant cultural exchange. His reign saw unprecedented mobility and interaction among diverse peoples, from the steppes of Mongolia to the cities of Persia, China, and Eastern Europe. Genghis Khan's death in 1227 remains shrouded in mystery, with theories ranging from illness to injuries sustained in battle. However, his legacy was secured through the vast empire he created, stretching from the Pacific Ocean in the east to the Caspian Sea in the west. His descendants expanded the empire even further, founding dynasties such as the Yuan in China and leaving an indelible mark on world history. He left behind a model of leadership that combined military prowess, strategic vision, and innovative governance. Though remembered for his ruthlessness, he was also a unifier who brought stability and prosperity to regions torn by war and division. The Silk Road flourished under Mongol protection, enabling an era of increased trade, travel, and knowledge exchange that shaped the medieval world. As night falls and you imagine the endless Mongol steppes under a blanket of stars, picture the relentless spirit of Temujin, the boy who survived abandonment, the warrior who united the tribes, and the ruler who forged an empire that changed the course of history forever. His story is one of resilience, ambition, and the power of vision, reminding us that from the harshest beginnings, greatness can arise and reshape the world in ways unimaginable. Let the tale of Genghis Khan lull you into peaceful dreams, carrying the echoes of the steppes in your heart. 22. Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis, ruled Yuan dynasty in China. Under the vast skies of the Mongolian steppe, where the winds whisper ancient secrets through endless waves of grass, the story of Kublai Khan unfolds. A tale of vision, power, and the bridging of worlds. Born into the mighty lineage of Genghis Khan, Kublai's life was destined to weave together the wild freedom of the steppes and the grandeur of imperial China. This is a journey through time, across deserts and rivers, palaces and battlefields, into the heart of an empire that stretched from the frozen north to the lush lands of the south. Kublai Khan entered the world in 1215, amidst the echoes of his grandfather, Genghis Khan's conquest, which had shaken the world's foundations. As the fourth son of Tului, Genghis's youngest son, and Sogaktani Beki, a woman renowned for her wisdom and strength, Kublai was born into a world of vast ambitions and unyielding expectations. His mother's influence shaped him profoundly. She taught him that leadership required not just strength, but compassion, intelligence, and the ability to adapt. From a young age, Kublai was different from many of his Mongol kin. While the open steppe and the life of the horseman called to his heart, so too did the culture, knowledge, and sophistication of the settled peoples his ancestors had conquered. He learned multiple languages and was deeply interested in Chinese philosophy, governance, and the arts. This curiosity set him apart, giving him a vision not just of conquest, but of empire building in a more complex, diverse world. As Kublai grew, so did the Mongol Empire, stretching farther than anyone before had dreamed. But with great expanse came great challenges. The empire was a tapestry of different peoples, languages, and traditions, woven together by force and fragile alliances. When the great Khan Möngke died in 1259, a power struggle ensued among Genghis Khan's descendants. Kublai, with his blend of military skill, diplomatic wisdom, and cultural insight, emerged victorious in the contest for the title of Great Khan. Yet Kublai's rule was not without conflict. His claim was contested by his younger brother Arik Boka, leading to a brutal civil war that tested the unity of the Mongol world. The war raged across steppes and forests, brother against brother, until Kublai's forces prevailed. This victory was more than a military triumph. It marked a turning point. Kublai's vision of a new empire rooted in the rich traditions of China was beginning to take shape. In 1271, Kublai declared the founding of the Yuan dynasty, signaling a new era. He took the Chinese name Shizu and established his capital at what is today Beijing, known then as Khanbalik. This city became the beating heart of his empire, a place where Mongol horsemen and Chinese scholars walked side by side, where the East met the West in bustling markets and quiet temples. Kublai was a ruler of remarkable ambition and foresight. His reign was marked by vast infrastructure projects. Canals were dug to facilitate trade, roads were built to link distant corners of the empire, and granaries stocked to feed millions. He understood the power of culture and knowledge, patronizing poets, artists, and scholars. He embraced the teachings of Confucius, but also showed tolerance for Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity, weaving a fabric of religious harmony rarely seen in such a vast realm. One of Kublai's greatest achievements was his promotion of trade and communication across Asia and beyond. The Silk Road flourished under his watch, with caravans laden with silk, spices, precious stones, and ideas journeying between the cities of China, Persia, India, and even Europe. Marco Polo, the Venetian traveler, famously visited Kublai's court, enchanted by the splendor of the Yuan dynasty and the Khan's openness to new cultures and knowledge. But Kublai's rule also faced enormous challenges. The vast empire was difficult to govern, and the Mongol military might was stretched thin across its borders. His ambitious attempts to conquer Japan ended in defeat, with fierce storms destroying the mighty Mongol fleets. Nevertheless, Kublai's vision endured. He invested in agriculture, supported technological innovations such as printing and gunpowder, and worked tirelessly to create a lasting legacy. As the years passed, Kublai grew into a wise, thoughtful ruler, one who understood that the strength of an empire lies not just in its armies, but in the hearts and minds of its people. His courts became centers of learning, his policies aimed at bringing prosperity and peace. He balanced the wild spirit of his Mongol ancestors with the refined governance of China, creating a unique synthesis that shaped the future of Asia. And eventually, Kublai Khan's long and eventful life drew to a close in 1294. His death marked the end of an era, but the empire he forged continued to influence the world for centuries. His descendants ruled the Yuan dynasty until the rise of the Ming, but the echoes of his reign remain in the art, culture, and history of Asia. As the night deepens, let your mind drift with the gentle rhythms of the steppes, the rustling of silk banners in the palace breeze, and the distant hooves of Mongol horsemen riding beneath the stars. Imagine the serene lakes and towering mountains of Mongolia, the bustling streets of Khanbalik, and the endless horizons where the dreams of a boy named Kublai Khan turned into the reality of an empire. Sleep now, embraced by the timeless story of a ruler who bridged worlds, a visionary who dared to dream beyond the vastness of the steppe, and a man whose legacy still whispers through history's pages. Rest easy, knowing that like Kublai Khan, greatness can grow from curiosity, courage, and the will to unite. 23. Tamerlane, Timur, Central Asian conqueror. Have you ever wondered how a man born into humble circumstances could rise to become one of the most feared conquerors in history, whose empire stretched from the sands of Central Asia to the gates of India and the shores of the Mediterranean? Imagine the thunder of armies marching, the clashing of swords, in a vision so relentless it reshaped the fate of millions. This is the story of Tamerlane, also known as Timur, the Central Asian conqueror whose name still echoes through time. In the vast and rugged lands of Central Asia, where the winds sweep endlessly across deserts and mountains, a fierce and ambitious figure rose from humble beginnings to become one of history's most formidable conquerors. His name was Timur, often known in the West as Tamerlane, a name echoing with both awe and dread. This is the story of a man shaped by the harsh steppes and blazing deserts, whose vision of empire would stretch from the sands of the Middle East to the gates of India, a tale of conquest, resilience, and complex legacy. Timur was born in 1336 near the city of Kesh, in what is now Uzbekistan. Though descended from the noble Barlas tribe, his family's fortunes were modest. He grew up amid a world of shifting alliances and constant warfare, where tribal loyalty was both a shield and a sword. From his youth, Timur showed a sharp mind and fierce determination. He was a skilled horseman and warrior, known for his strength and tactical genius, but also for his relentless ambition. As a young man, Timur was drawn to the legacy of Genghis Khan, the legendary founder of the Mongol Empire. Though not a direct descendant, Timur claimed the mantle of the Mongol conquerors, weaving his destiny into theirs. With a vision to restore and surpass the greatness of those empires, he began his rise to power through a series of bold and brutal campaigns, winning respect and fear among the tribes and cities of Central Asia. Timur's conquests were swift and decisive. He unified the fractious tribes, establishing a strong base in Samarkand, a city that would become the jewel of his empire. Samarkand blossomed under his reign, a vibrant center of culture, learning, and architecture, where poets, artists, and scholars gathered. Yet beneath this flourishing city lay the hardened will of a ruler who saw power as absolute and unyielding. Across deserts and mountains, Timur's armies swept through Persia, Mesopotamia, and the Caucasus, toppling sultans and kings alike. His military campaigns were marked by incredible strategy and ruthlessness. Cities that resisted faced harsh consequences. Yet Timur also showed a pragmatic side, often incorporating local rulers and traditions into his administration to maintain control over his vast domains. One of Timur's most famous and ambitious campaigns was against the Delhi Sultanate in India. In 1398, he crossed into the fertile plains of northern India, his forces clashing with the armies of the Sultan. The siege of Delhi was fierce and devastating, ending with Timur's victory and the city's plunder. This campaign opened the gates for the spread of Timur's influence into the rich lands of the Indian subcontinent. Despite his reputation as a fierce warrior, Timur was also a patron of the arts and architecture. His vision for Samarkand included grand mosques, mausoleums, and gardens that still inspire awe today. The city became a symbol of his empire's wealth and power, a crossroads of cultures and ideas stretching from China to the Mediterranean. Timur's legacy is complex. He was a conqueror whose campaigns caused immense destruction and suffering, yet he was also a builder who left an indelible mark on the cultural landscape of Central Asia. His empire, though short-lived after his death in 1405, paved the way for the later rise of powerful dynasties such as the Mughals in India. As night falls, imagine the endless steppe under a blanket of stars, the quiet crackling of a distant campfire, where Timur's warriors rest after a long day of travel. Picture the majestic minarets of Samarkand glowing softly in the moonlight, and the whispers of history carried by the desert winds. Let your mind drift gently with the story of a man whose life was a tapestry of fierce ambition, brilliant strategy, and the timeless quest to carve a name upon the world. Sleep now, carried on the winds of the steppe, where the echoes of Timur's journey remind us that even amidst the harshest landscapes, dreams of greatness can bloom and endure. 24. Harun al-Rashid, Abbasid Caliph during Islamic Golden Age. Have you ever imagined the bustling streets of Baghdad under the glow of lanterns, the air thick with the scent of spices, poetry, and learning? Picture a time when knowledge flourished and the world seemed full of endless possibility. This was the era of Harun al-Rashid, the Abbasid Caliph whose reign is remembered as the dazzling heart of the Islamic Golden Age. Do you know about the ruler whose very name echoes through the halls of history as a symbol of wisdom and splendor? Born into a world on the cusp of transformation, his story is woven with mystery, power, and the brilliant dawn of a civilization's golden age. This is the tale of Harun al-Rashid, the caliph who ruled the Abbasid Empire at its zenith, bringing Baghdad to unparalleled heights of culture and learning. Harun was born in 763 CE in the heart of the rapidly growing city of Baghdad. a city that was itself a testament to the ambition and vision of the Abbasid dynasty. The Abbasids had risen to power by overthrowing the Umayyads in 750 CE, claiming a new era for the Islamic world. The city of Baghdad, founded just a few decades before Harun's birth, was designed to be the new capital of this flourishing empire, symbolizing both political might and cultural openness. His father, Caliph al-Mahdi, was the third Abbasid ruler, a man known for his piety, administrative skill, and the expansion of Abbasid influence. Al-Mahdi's court was a hub of intellectual activity, and Harun grew up surrounded by scholars, poets, theologians, and diplomats from across the known world. His mother, Al-Khayzurin, was a woman of great intelligence and influence, originally from Yemen, whose guidance would shape Harun's character profoundly. She was known to be politically astute, often advising the caliph and later playing a key role in court affairs during Harun's reign. From his earliest years, Harun was immersed in the traditions of Islamic scholarship and governance. His education was broad and rigorous, covering not only religious studies in the Quran, but also history, philosophy, poetry, and the arts of war and administration. Tutors from diverse backgrounds taught him Arabs, Persians, and others, reflecting the cosmopolitan nature of the Abbasid court. Unlike many rulers born into power, Harun was said to possess a curious and open mind. He was fascinated by tales of distant lands, the stars, and the mysteries of the natural world. The young prince often wandered through the grand libraries of Baghdad, losing himself in scrolls and manuscripts that spoke of ancient civilizations, Greece, India, Persia, and the knowledge they had bequeathed to humankind. His childhood was not without challenges. The Abbasid Empire was vast, its borders ever under threat from internal revolts and external enemies. Political intrigue was a constant presence at court. The young Harun learned early that power was as fragile as it was mighty. His mother's careful navigation of court politics ensured his safety and positioned him as heir apparent. But Harun himself understood that to be a great leader, he would need more than birthright. He would need wisdom, courage, and justice. As a teenager, Harun was given increasing responsibilities. He traveled with his father on military campaigns, observing strategy and leadership firsthand. These experiences hardened his resolve and taught him the importance of balance between strength and mercy, tradition and innovation, faith and reason. The city of Baghdad, where he was raised, was a marvel of its age. Built as a perfect circle with the caliph's palace at its center, it was the embodiment of Abbasid ambition, a city designed to be the jewel of the Islamic world. Its markets thrived with merchants trading silk, spices, precious metals, and rare artifacts from every corner of the known world. The streets were filled with poets reciting verses, musicians playing melodies, and scholars debating ideas that would lay the foundation for centuries of progress. Harun al-Rashid's early life was thus a blend of royal privilege, rigorous education, and exposure to the diverse cultures that enriched the Abbasid Empire. This upbringing forged in him a vision to lead not just as a ruler of land and armies, but as a patron of knowledge, justice, and cultural flourishing. When his father al-Mahdi died in 785 CE, Harun, then in his early 20s, ascended the throne. The young caliph was determined to leave his mark, not only through conquest, but through the cultivation of a society where wisdom and art could flourish side by side with political power. Harun al-Rashid passed away in 809 CE, leaving behind a legacy of cultural brilliance and political complexity. His reign symbolizes a golden era of Islamic civilization, a time when knowledge, art, and power converged to inspire generations. As you drift into sleep tonight, may the stories of Harun's Baghdad and the shimmering lights of the Golden Age lull you gently into peaceful dreams. Sleep well, dear seeker of history. Sweet dreams. 25. Al-Khwarizmi, father of algebra. Have you ever wondered where the numbers you calculate with, the algorithms your phone depends on, and the word algebra itself truly come from? Imagine a time when the stars were charted by hand, when libraries glowed with candlelight, and where one man, working amidst scrolls and astrolabes, quietly laid the foundation for the digital age. His name was Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, the father of algebra. Do you know the man whose name quietly powers the very numbers and algorithms that guide our modern world? The one who gave us the foundation of algebra, without which computer science, engineering, and even daily calculations would be unimaginable. His life is a fascinating journey from the golden age of Islamic scholarship, a tale of discovery, intellect, and legacy that still shapes our lives today. Born around 780 CE in the region of Khwarezm, near the Aral Sea, modern-day Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi came into a world brimming with curiosity and learning. This was an era when the Abbasid Caliphate, centered in Baghdad, was the intellectual heart of the world. The city attracted scholars, translators, and thinkers from across the globe, all working to collect and expand the sum of human knowledge. Al-Khwarizmi's early life is less documented than his groundbreaking works, but it is clear that he was deeply embedded in this vibrant, scholarly environment. His family's background remains somewhat mysterious, but his name, Al-Khwarizmi, marks him as a native of Khwarezm, a region famed for its own centers of learning and culture. As a young man, Al-Khwarizmi made his way to Baghdad, where he became part of the legendary House of Wisdom, the Bait al-Hikmah, an enormous library and research institution commissioned by the Abbasid caliphs. This was no ordinary place. It was a hub for translating ancient Greek, Indian, Persian, and Egyptian texts into Arabic, sparking a renaissance of scientific and mathematical thought. Al-Khwarizmi's genius lay in synthesizing the knowledge of earlier civilizations with innovative approaches. One of his greatest achievements was his work on the Indian numeral system, which introduced the concept of zero and place value to the Islamic world and later Europe. This breakthrough made calculations easier and more systematic than ever before. Around 820 CE, he wrote his famous treatise Al-Kitab al-Mukhtasar fi Hisab al-Jabr wal-Muqabala, which means the compendious book on calculation by completion and balancing. This work laid the foundations of algebra, an entirely new branch of mathematics that went beyond simple arithmetic or geometry. The word algebra itself derives from al-Jabr, a term he used to describe the process of moving terms from one side of an equation to the other to simplify and solve it. Before Al-Khwarizmi, mathematics was largely geometric, dealing with shapes and figures, or arithmetic, handling numbers without a general theory for solving equations. Al-Khwarizmi introduced systematic methods for solving linear and quadratic equations, presenting algorithms, step-by-step procedures, that could be universally applied. His approach was practical yet elegant, showing how to reduce complex problems into simpler, solvable forms. His work didn't stop there. Al-Khwarizmi also authored texts on arithmetic using the Hindu numeral system, and on astronomy and geography, contributing to maps and celestial calculations. His book on geography corrected Ptolemy's earlier maps, refining the coordinates of various cities and landmarks. His interdisciplinary approach made him a polymath, influencing not just mathematics, but science as a whole. The impact of Al-Khwarizmi's works extended far beyond the Islamic world. Through translations into Latin during the 12th century, his treatises reached Europe, helping to spark the European Renaissance centuries later. The very word algorithm, foundational to modern computing, is derived from the Latinized version of his name, algorithmi. Al-Khwarizmi's legacy is not just confined to abstract theory. His work transformed how humans think about problem solving, enabling advances in engineering, physics, economics, and more. The algebra he pioneered is taught worldwide, forming a critical pillar in education. Despite the centuries that have passed, the spirit of Al-Khwarizmi's intellectual curiosity and methodical thinking remains alive. From the devices in our pockets to the complex systems that govern global communication and finance, traces of his genius are woven into the fabric of modern life. So tonight, as you drift into the quiet of your dreams, imagine the ancient libraries of Baghdad, where a scholar named Al-Khwarizmi first wrote the algorithms that still guide us. Sleep well, dear seeker of knowledge. Sweet dreams. 26. Robin Hood, English outlaw hero. Do you know the legend of the man who robbed from the rich and gave to the poor? A hero whose name echoes through English folklore and beyond? The outlaw who became a symbol of justice, resistance, and hope? Tonight, we journey into the thick Sherwood forest in the heart of medieval England to unravel the tale of Robin Hood. More than just a simple bandit, but a timeless icon whose story is layered with history, myth, and mystery. Robin Hood's origins are shrouded in the mist of centuries. Historians and storytellers have long debated whether he was a real person or a composite of many figures. Some say he lived during the late 12th or early 13th century, at the time of King Richard the Lionheart and Prince John, while others place him in different eras. The earliest written records mentioning a Robin Hood appear in ballads and legal documents from the 14th and 15th centuries, though these likely reflect stories passed down orally long before. Born into modest means, if he was a real man, Robin Hood's background is often depicted as that of a yeoman or minor nobleman wronged by corrupt authorities. Some tales suggest he was a dispossessed nobleman, stripped of his lands and title by a treacherous sheriff, or by Prince John during King Richard's absence on crusade. Whatever his origins, his story begins with rebellion, a refusal to accept injustice and a vow to fight for the common folk. Robin Hood's rise to notoriety started in the forests of Nottinghamshire, particularly Sherwood Forest, where he gathered a band of loyal followers, merry men, each with their own unique skills and personalities. Figures like Little John, a giant of a man skilled in staff combat, Friar Tuck, a jovial and devout cleric, Will Scarlet, known for his fiery temper and archery skills, and Maid Marian, often portrayed as Robin's love and equal partner, enriched the legend and made it resonate with audiences. In a world dominated by feudal lords and harsh laws, Robin Hood's band became champions of the oppressed peasants and townsfolk. The Sheriff of Nottingham, the story's chief antagonist, was notorious for harsh taxes and brutal enforcement, making him a perfect foil to Robin's fight for justice. The sheriff's relentless pursuit only fueled Robin's resolve and cunning, resulting in daring raids, ambushes, and acts of generosity. Robin's exploits included stealing gold and goods from wealthy nobles and corrupt officials and redistributing them to the poor and needy. His legendary skill with the bow made him nearly unbeatable, and many stories describe contests of archery where Robin outshot all rivals, cementing his reputation as England's greatest archer. But Robin Hood's story is more than a series of thrilling adventures. It is also a tale of loyalty, friendship, and sacrifice. His merry men were more than companions. They were family united by shared values and a common cause. Together they created a micro-society in the forest that upheld fairness and camaraderie, defying the strict hierarchies of medieval England. The political backdrop of Robin Hood's story is significant. The era of King Richard the Lionheart and his brother Prince John was marked by turmoil. King Richard's participation in the Crusades left England vulnerable, and Prince John's regency was often portrayed as greedy and tyrannical. Robin Hood's defiance can be seen as a symbolic resistance to corrupt leadership and unjust governance, making him a folk hero who embodied the hopes of the common people for fairness and liberty. Over time, the legend of Robin Hood grew and evolved. Medieval ballads romanticize his daring deeds and noble heart. Plays, poems, and later novels and films expanded the tale, sometimes adding new characters or altering existing ones. Maid Marian became a stronger female figure, sometimes a noble woman and sometimes a fellow outlaw. The Merrymen's personalities were fleshed out, and their adventures became more elaborate. Despite this embellishment, the core of Robin Hood's story remained, a champion of the poor and a thorn in the side of the corrupt. His stories conveyed the idea that true justice transcends law when laws serve only the powerful. Robin Hood's influence extends beyond English folklore. His archetype appears worldwide, the noble outlaw fighting for justice against oppression. In many ways, his story laid the groundwork for later heroes in literature, cinema, and popular culture, from the American Western outlaw to modern vigilantes. The end of Robin Hood's tale is as mysterious as his beginnings. Some versions say he was betrayed, shot by an arrow, or poisoned. Others suggest he retired peacefully or even died a martyr's death. The ambiguity adds to the legend's enduring allure, inviting each generation to find their own meaning in his story. Tonight, as you close your eyes and drift into dreams, let the tale of Robin Hood remind you that courage and kindness can change the world, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Sleep well, dear guardian of hope. Sweet dreams. 27. Beowulf hero from Old English epic poem. Do you know the tale whispered through the ages, the story that echoes like a gentle breeze over ancient meadows and starlit skies? It is a tale of courage, of fierce battles and quiet moments of reflection. A story where heroism and fate entwine in a timeless dance. Tonight, let your mind wander back to a world where warriors clad in shining mail strode through misty lands, where monsters lurked beyond the campfire's glow, and a hero named Beowulf rose from the shadows to face the unknown. Close your eyes and listen as the saga unfolds like a soft song sung by the winds. Long ago, before the world was tamed by kings and kingdoms, before cities gleamed with towers of stone and gold, there lived a man named Beowulf. Born of noble blood, his heart was as vast as the ocean, and his strength as mighty as the ancient oaks that stood sentinel in the forests. From his earliest days, tales of his valor were whispered among the people, for he was a warrior unlike any other, brave and true, with a spirit that burned bright against the darkness. The son of Ecgtheow, a noble warrior himself, Beowulf was raised in the land of the Geats, across the cold northern seas. His youth was marked by tests of strength and courage, by battles with wild beasts and fierce contests among his peers. Yet even then, there was something different about Beowulf, a calmness, a purpose that seemed to guide his every step. He was destined for greatness, though the path ahead would be paved with shadows and light alike. Far across the waters in the kingdom of the Danes, there was a hall named Heorot, shining with the warmth of feasts and laughter. It was the heart of a great people, ruled by King Hrothgar, a wise and generous lord who had built a place where men could gather in peace. But peace is a fragile thing, and darkness found its way into Heorot's joyous halls. From the murky depths of the night, a terrible creature called Grendel came forth, a beast twisted by bitterness, whose anger knew no bounds. Grendel tore through Heorot with savage fury, snatching warriors from their beds, silencing the songs and laughter, and casting a long shadow of fear across the land. The Danes were helpless, their strength no match for the relentless terror that stalked them. Night after night, the monster struck, until the once vibrant hall lay empty and cold, a hollow echo of its former glory. When news of this reached Beowulf, his heart stirred with a fierce determination. He knew the call of duty and honor, and he sailed across the sea with his band of loyal warriors, seeking to aid the Danes in their hour of need. The journey was long and treacherous, but Beowulf's resolve never wavered. He was not driven by the thirst for gold or fame, but by the desire to protect the innocent and to face the darkness with courage. Upon arrival, the great hall of Hera stood silent, its stones whispering stories of grief. King Hrothgar greeted Beowulf with respect and hope, for the young hero's reputation had preceded him. That night, under the watchful eyes of the stars, Beowulf waited, his senses sharp and heart steady, as the shadows deepened and the air grew thick with tension. When Grendel came, it was with the rage of 1,000 storms. But Beowulf was ready. The battle was fierce and primal, a dance of power and will beneath the hall's rafters. Beowulf's grip was like iron, his strength unmatched, and with a mighty roar he seized the monster's arm and wrenched it from its body. Grendel fled into the night, wounded and broken, never to threaten Herod again. The Danes rejoiced, their songs rising like dawn's first light, but the victory was only the beginning. For Grendel's mother, a creature as fierce and dark as the depths from which she came, sought vengeance for her son's defeat. She rose from her watery lair, a shadow moving through the cold rivers, and struck at the heart of the Danes once more. Beowulf did not hesitate. He pursued her into the depths, descending into a world of murky waters and ancient stones, where silence was thick and danger lurked in every shadow. Armed with his courage and a mighty sword forged by the gods, he battled the fierce creature in a struggle that echoed through the very earth. In the end, Beowulf triumphed, his blade piercing the darkness, bringing peace once more to the land. But victory was not without its price. Beowulf returned to his own people, a hero crowned with glory, but aware of the fleeting nature of life and power. Years passed, and he grew older, a king wise and beloved, ruling the Geats with fairness and strength. Yet even in times of peace, fate's shadow loomed near. In the twilight of his reign, a new terror arose, a dragon, ancient and wrathful, awakened by the theft of a precious treasure. The beast ravaged the land, burning villages and striking fear into the hearts of all. Beowulf, though aged, took up his sword once more, determined to face the dragon and protect his people. The battle was fierce and fateful. Flames roared, steel clashed, and in the heart of the conflict, Beowulf fought with the courage of a lifetime. Though he struck down the dragon, he was gravely wounded, his final breath mingling with the smoke of victory. As his people mourned, they remembered not only the warrior, but the king who embodied honor, strength, and sacrifice. Beowulf's story became a beacon through the ages, a reminder of the courage that lies within us all, even in the face of darkness. Now, as you drift towards sleep, carry the calm strength of Beowulf within you, the light of his bravery guiding you through your dreams. Let the whispers of his saga cradle your mind, and may you find rest in the quiet power of ancient tales. Sleep well, dear dreamer. Sweet dreams. 28. Lady Godiva, legendary noblewoman who rode unclothed through Coventry. Have you ever heard of a noblewoman so bold, so defiant, that she rode unclothed through the heart of her city, not for attention, but for justice? A lady draped not in silks or jewels, but in courage alone. This is not a fable whispered in passing. It is the legend of Lady Godiva, a name etched into English folklore, shimmering with mystery and moral power. Lady Godiva was born into a world of stone castles, rolling green fields, and the slow rhythm of life in Anglo-Saxon England. She was a child of nobility, the daughter of Leofric, Earl of Mercia, a powerful and respected lord. Though the land around her was often marked by hardship and struggle, Godiva's early years were wrapped in the gentle care of her family, nurtured with stories of honor, loyalty, and duty. Her childhood was one of discovery beneath the ancient oaks and silver rivers that crisscrossed the countryside. She learned the quiet strength of the earth, the whisper of the wind in the tall grass, and the importance of kindness to those who toiled on the land. Even then, a sense of justice glimmered in her heart, a seed waiting to bloom. As she grew, Godiva's beauty was said to reflect the calm and dignity of the world around her, a serene face framed by flowing hair like woven sunlight, eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of the ages. But it was not only her appearance that drew people's attention, it was the gentle power in her voice, the compassion that softened even the hardest hearts. Her father, Earl Leofric, was a man of great authority, but also stern temper. The times were difficult, taxes were heavy, and many struggled just to survive. Godiva often saw the sorrow and hardship of the townsfolk who lived beneath her family's shadow, and her heart ached for them. She listened to their whispered complaints about the heavy tolls imposed by her father, which weighed down even the strongest farmers and tradespeople. Though her station separated her from the common people, Godiva's spirit bridged the gap. She walked among them quietly, not as a noble observing subjects, but as a soul seeking to understand. She saw their worn hands, the lines of worry etched deep into their faces, and she felt the stirrings of a brave resolve. In the halls of her family's manor, she was educated in the ways of the nobility, letters, music, the art of diplomacy. But her lessons often turned to matters of the heart. Her mother, a gentlewoman of grace, taught her that true strength lay not in power or wealth, but in mercy and courage. These early teachings planted in Godiva a vision of a better world, where justice might shine brighter than gold. As she blossomed into young womanhood, her reputation grew, not just as a noble's daughter, but as a woman of rare kindness and wisdom. Lords and ladies from distant lands spoke of her with admiration, and suitors came seeking her hand. Yet her thoughts often wandered back to the villagers and their quiet suffering. Her life was soon to intertwine with that of a man equally powerful and proud. Her husband, Leofric, Earl of Mercia, a man whose heart was said to be as unyielding as the stone walls of their castle. Together they ruled the land, their decisions shaping the lives of many. Though Leofric's rule was firm and sometimes harsh, Godiva's gentle nature softened his edge. She became a quiet force beside him, advocating for mercy and fairness whenever she could. Yet the burdens of leadership weighed heavily upon both, and the struggle between power and compassion would soon set the stage for a legendary act that would echo across time. So as you drift deeper into sleep, imagine the soft rustle of medieval tapestries, the distant song of night birds, and the glow of candlelight flickering against ancient stone. Picture Lady Godiva in her flowing gowns, walking quietly among her people, a heart full of courage ready to change the course of her world. Sleep well, dear dreamer, as the story of Lady Godiva unfolds, carrying you gently into a night filled with legends and dreams. 29. Merlin, legendary wizard of Arthurian myth. Have you ever wondered if there was once a man who whispered to kings, saw the future in swirling waters, and wove spells not for power, but for fate itself? A figure draped in robes, neither fully mortal nor fully myth, who stood in the shadow of every legend, guiding destiny with a mere flick of his hand. Such is the tale of Merlin, the wizard of kings, the seer of Avalon, the enigma of Arthurian lore. In a time long ago, when the world was young and magic whispered in the winds, there lived a man whose name would be spoken with reverence for centuries. Merlin, the legendary wizard whose wisdom and power shaped the very fate of kings and kingdoms. As you lay comfortably, ready to drift into the world of dreams, let me take you on a journey through the misty lands of ancient Britain, where myth and history weave together like threads of silver moonlight. Merlin's story begins in a realm between the earthly and the mystical, a place where the veil between the seen and unseen was thin and shimmering. His origins are as mysterious as the stars themselves, told in many ways by different storytellers, each adding their own magic to the tale. Some say he was born of a mortal woman and a powerful spirit from the other world, a child of two worlds destined to carry secrets beyond human grasp. His mother, a gentle woman named Alden, lived in a quiet village nestled in the shadow of towering forests and mist-covered hills. It was here, beneath a sky strewn with glittering constellations, that Merlin took his first breath. His early days were marked by an otherworldly calm, a serenity that hinted at the greatness within him. Even as a boy, Merlin showed signs of extraordinary power. He could see things others could not, glimpses of the future shimmering like faint reflections on a still lake, voices of the winds that carried secrets from distant lands, and shadows that danced with meaning in the flickering firelight. His eyes, deep and knowing, seemed to hold the wisdom of ages long past. The villagers, at first unsure, soon came to regard the boy with a mixture of awe and reverence. Some whispered that he was touched by the gods. Others feared the strange forces that moved around him like a soft, unseen cloak. But his mother loved him fiercely and protected him with all her heart. As Merlin grew, so too did his powers and his understanding of the world's hidden mysteries. He wandered the ancient forests where the trees whispered ancient secrets and the stones hummed with forgotten magic. It was here that he met the wild creatures of the wood, the wise owl whose eyes saw through darkness, the silver stag that moved like a ghost through the shadows, and the fireflies that danced like tiny stars in the night. Under the canopy of emerald leaves, Merlin learned the language of nature. He spoke with the rivers and the winds, felt the heartbeat of the earth beneath his feet, and listened to the songs of the stars overhead. His connection to the world was deep and unbreakable, as if the very soul of the land had chosen him as its guardian. But Merlin's journey was not without trials. The forces of darkness and chaos stirred in the world, threatening to unravel the delicate balance between light and shadow. Strange creatures from forgotten realms crept into the forests, and whispers of war echoed across the hills. It was a time when kings rose and fell like the tides, and the fate of Britain hung in a fragile balance. Recognizing his destiny, Merlin sought guidance from the ancient sages and druids who had preserved the old knowledge. He traveled far and wide across misty moors, over towering mountains, and through sacred groves bathed in moonlight. Each step deepened his wisdom, and each challenge strengthened his resolve. It was during these travels that Merlin encountered the Lady of the Lake, a mysterious and powerful figure whose presence shimmered like a mirage by the water's edge. She taught him the deeper mysteries of magic, how to weave spells from the fabric of the stars, how to glimpse the threads of fate, and how to call upon the spirits that dwell beyond mortal sight. Merlin's reputation as a wise and powerful wizard grew, and soon his path crossed with that of a young king destined for greatness. Arthur, the once and future king. The story of Merlin and Arthur would become one of the most enduring legends of all time, a tale of bravery, magic, and the eternal struggle between good and evil. Through Merlin's guidance, Arthur would pull the sword Excalibur from the stone, unite the fractured kingdoms of Britain, and lead his knights in the quest for the Holy Grail. Merlin's wisdom was the light that illuminated the darkest paths, and his magic the shield that protected the innocent. But Merlin was also a man of mystery and paradox. Though powerful, he was bound by the laws of fate, and his own story is woven with both triumph and sorrow. He was a keeper of secrets, a guardian of ancient knowledge, and at times a lonely figure walking the thin line between mortal life and the realm of spirits. As you sink deeper into the softness of night, imagine the gentle rustling of leaves in enchanted forests, the flicker of candlelight in stone towers, and the quiet murmur of spells whispered beneath the moon. Picture Merlin, cloaked in robes woven from twilight, his eyes glowing with ancient wisdom, standing tall among the swirling mists of legend. Rest now, dear listener, and let the magic of Merlin's tale carry you into dreams where kings and wizards roam, where swords gleam with destiny, and where the hard courage can shape the fate of worlds. 30. Baba Yaga, Slavic mythical witch, adds a darker twist. Have you ever heard a whisper in the forest? A tale carried on cold winds, about a crooked hut that walks on chicken legs, turning slowly, endlessly, deep in a pine-black wood. Have you ever wondered what lives within it? What eyes peer from the dark? What voice creaks from lips older than time? This is the last story, and it is not like the others. In the heart of the ancient Slavic forests, where shadows stretch long and the whispers of the old world cling to every leaf and branch, there exists a figure as old as time itself, Baba Yaga. She is neither simply good nor purely evil. She is a creature of the wild, a guardian of forgotten knowledge, a weaver of magic, both dark and deep. Tonight, as your eyes grow heavy and the world quiets around you, let me take you into her mysterious realm, where the boundary between reality and myth blurs softly like twilight mist. The forest itself seems alive, its towering trees swaying gently as if breathing with the wind. The moonlight filters through the dense canopy, painting the ground in silver pools. Moss carpets the earth, soft and cool beneath your feet, and somewhere distant, the low hoot of an owl stirs the still night. This is no ordinary forest. It is a place where time slows and the old stories come alive, where magic lingers like the scent of wildflowers after the rain. Deep within this forest, hidden from the eyes of common folk, stands a hut unlike any other. It is a small wooden house, but it moves, resting on enormous chicken legs that stomp and turn, allowing the hut to roam freely among the trees. The hut's wooden walls are carved with ancient runes and symbols that glow faintly in the moonlight. Smoke curls lazily from its crooked chimney, carrying the scent of herbs and something wilder, something untamed. This is the home of Baba Yaga. She is a figure who embodies contradictions, a crone yet fiercely powerful, terrifying yet wise. Her hair is wild and tangled, like the brambles of the forest, her eyes sparkling with a sharp, cunning light. Some say her nose is long and hooked, and her fingers are gnarled like tree roots. She is known to fly through the night sky in a mortar, wielding a pestle to guide her swift journey, and a broom to sweep away her tracks, leaving no trace for the curious to follow. Though fearsome, Baba Yaga is no mere villain. She is a keeper of balance, a tester of hearts and minds. Travelers who enter her domain must approach with respect, bravery, and wit, for she is both a giver of gifts and a bringer of challenges. Those who seek her help must prove themselves worthy through riddles and trials, and those who fail may find themselves lost forever in the endless maze of the forest, or subject to her wrath. But why does Baba Yaga test the bold? What secrets does she guard in the deep, dark woods? Long ago, before the tales were told around flickering fires, Baba Yaga was born of the forest itself. She is part of the earth and sky, a spirit bound to the cycles of nature, life, death, and rebirth. She knows the language of animals, the whispers of the wind, and the hidden truths buried beneath the soil. Her power is wild and ancient, older than kings and empires. Many seek her wisdom, for Baba Yaga holds knowledge of healing and magic, of herbs that can cure or poison, of spells that open the gates between worlds. She can grant aid or unleash curses, depending on the heart of the one who asks. She embodies the fierce independence of the wild, reminding all who cross her path that power comes with responsibility, and that every choice has its shadow. On one quiet night, a young maiden ventured into the forest, her heart heavy with sorrow and hope. She had heard whispers of Baba Yaga's hut, a place where wishes might be granted, or at least answers found. Guided by moonlight and courage, she walked beneath the towering pines, listening to the rustle of leaves and the distant call of the night creatures. When the moving hut finally appeared, turning slowly on its chicken legs, the maiden stood still and spoke with a clear, steady voice, showing no fear. The door creaked open and Baba Yaga emerged, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. "What brings you here, child of the village?" the witch asked, her voice like the crackling of dry leaves. "I seek a cure for my ailing mother," the maiden replied. "I am willing to face any test, to learn any secret." Baba Yaga smiled, a strange, knowing smile. "Very well," she said. "You must pass 3 trials. Fail, and you will remain lost in the forest forever. Succeed, and the knowledge you seek shall be yours." The trials were daunting. First, the maiden was tasked with cleaning a vast room filled with dust and cobwebs, a metaphor for clearing one's mind and heart of distractions and fear. She worked tirelessly, her determination shining through. Next, Baba Yaga commanded her to separate grains of poppy seed from grains of millet, a task requiring patience, precision, and focus. The maiden's steady hands and calm spirit prevailed. Finally, she was to fetch water from a well deep within the forest, a well said to be guarded by spirits and illusions. With steady steps and clear purpose, the maiden braved shadows and trickery, bringing the pure water back to the hut. Impressed by the maiden's courage and persistence, Baba Yaga granted her a bundle of rare herbs and whispered a chant of healing. The maiden returned home, her heart light, her mother's health soon restored by the magic of the forest witch. Stories like this weave through the fabric of Slavic folklore, painting Baba Yaga as a figure who is neither friend nor foe, but a mirror of the human soul, fierce, wise, and full of secrets. Yet not all who meet Baba Yaga find mercy. Many a lost traveler, greedy or foolish, have vanished into the forest shadows, caught forever in the witch's endless labyrinth, or transformed by her magic into creatures of the night. The forest itself seems to rise to protect its mistress, turning thorny vines into walls and twisting paths into traps. But even in her darkest moments, Baba Yaga teaches a lesson that respect for the wild, for knowledge, and for one's own inner strength is the path to survival and growth. Her legend stretches far beyond the forest. In the villages, people leave offerings at the forest's edge, a bit of bread, a pinch of salt, a feather to honor Baba Yaga and seek her protection. She is the wild woman of the woods, the spirit of the unknown, and the keeper of ancient truths. As you lie now, feeling the steady rhythm of your breath in the gentle warmth of your bed, picture Baba Yaga's hut slowly turning in the moonlight, the forest alive with quiet magic. Let the shadows of the trees cradle your dreams, and the whispering winds sing you softly to sleep. For in the heart of the forest, Baba Yaga watches not with anger, but with a knowing calm, guarding the mysteries of the night, and welcoming those who walk with courage and respect into the world beyond the ordinary. Good night, and may your dreams be filled with wonder and the gentle magic of the wild.